Brookfield Select Board meeting Thursday, November 21st, 2024. Please stand for pledge the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Reminder, winter parking ban is in effect through April 1st. There shall be no parking on any streets between the hours of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Vehicles in violation will be ticketed and towed at the owner's expense. Also, snow or ice removed from driveways, sidewalks, or private property shall not be plowed, shoveled, or blown across any public way, street, or roadway. Signed warrants.
We have three warrants. The first one is fiscal year 25-10 payroll in the amount of $212,333.84. Next is fiscal year 25-10 as well. Accounts payable in the amount of $53,996.54. And lastly is fiscal year 25-10 withholding in the amount of $157,976.57.
All right. First on the agenda, joint meeting with the Highway Advisory Committee. Do you guys need to open your meeting?
Okay, do I have a motion to open the Highway Advisory Committee joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen? Bobby, you gonna second that?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It is open at 6:33. You're all welcome to come up if you want. Could I request that the recording secretary record the minutes of this portion of the meetings?
Yes.
Thank you. So you don't need a copy of my agenda, correct? Okay.
No.
So we wanted to talk about the staffing plan for highway. I did not edit the existing superintendent or any of the positions. We did kind of a summary, so.
Actually, so before we go into that, so items number 4, 5, and 6, are we going to be talking about during the joint? And should we?
We
You know what I'm-
So the joint is joint.
We have a
so-
joint meeting, but
Yeah,
I'm
but we're
assuming we're going to talk
covering-
about
the
covering.
issues that are on there. So I don't think we technically need the motion, but since habitually we've made it, I'm gonna put a motion on the floor for us to take the Board of Selectmen's agenda in the order deemed appropriate by the chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All in
No.
favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll be discussing items 4, 5, and 6 as part of the joint meeting with the Highway Advisory Committee.
So Brad, right there is the kind of summary from our meeting last night.
There's one for Beth in there.
There's several copies there. I have more if you need it. Rich has one.
Oh, you're handing out one for Karen, maybe, or Ron?
I got two here. Anybody else need one?
Yes.
So let me explain what we did last night. We had a highway advisory meeting at the highway barn, and we talked about recommended staffing for the highway department. And so we feel, you need a superintendent, administrative assistant, a grant writer, if the highway has one, or the town grant writer. The foreman, and you'll see in red it shows mechanic, that could be either or. And then one laborer, 2 seasonal workers, and 5 plus snowplow operators. That's the recommended staffing for highway. Right. So the next part is the Highway Advisory Committee's recommended review of the position descriptions relating to education's licensing and experience requirements. So under superintendent, we think it should be classified as a working superintendent, high school diploma or GED. It would be our recommendation to remove the bachelor's degree in civil engineering from that position. 5 to 7 years admin management or municipal or highway, a valid mass driver's license, a valid CDL B with an A preferred, with the standard transmission endorsement, because we have standard vehicles, standard transmission vehicles, a valid lift and hoisting with endorsements 2A, 2E, 2A, 4E, and 4G.
And what do those three represent? 'Cause
As
I know I've got a list somewhere,
Represents
but.
a loader, a backhoe,
And
a catch basin truck, as well as the side mower.
Which one is the side one? Is that?
4D.
Was that
4G.
4G? Okay. The valid mass medical certificate, which is part of your CDL. And other welding knowledge or experience would be preferred as desired, mechanical ability preferred, and fabricating experience helpful. Those were the suggestions or recommendations for the working superintendent position. We did not review the administrative assistant position description. We did review the foreman position, and which we classified it or proposed that it could be a foreman mechanics position, either or. The requirement would be a high school diploma and GED, 3 years experience, municipal or construction, valid CDL with A or B, and a standard transmission endorsement, a valid mass medical certificate, valid hoisting engineer with 2A, 4G endorsement, and you see a question mark for 4E, because 4E isn't recommended above. Should it also be in that one? Doesn't need to be, but that was a question. And to delete the requirements for the NIMS 700 and the ICS 200. Could you explain what those are, Rick?
I'm not aware of those.
Well, yeah, the ICS, is that the FEMA?
I don't know what they are. They were in the job description in,
If I may, through the chair, the NIM 700 and the ICS 100 both need to remain. Highway and DPW workers are considered as part of Homeland Security first responders, and that is the base of our whole training that's
should that be just for the labor, or should that be each position?
every person on that department, in fact, every town department, needs to have that as a minimum. For the labor, 100, 700. The
100,
superintendent
700?
should have 200. ICS 200. The foreman would be a different story, but no. Everybody with the exception of the superintendent needs to have ICS 100 and NIM 700.
Is it ICS 100 or 200?
100.
100.
200 is supervisory of a larger scale.
It's a quick, easy online.
So it's 200 on the position description that I reviewed.
Yeah, and that may be an old one, because we had pulled the civil engineering degree off when we did the last
Okay.
posting, so, but that's okay. Other than that, I don't think it changed much, so.
Okay. So,
Chair,
I'm sorry?
I think some of those should be more able to,
Yeah, or
Require,
to have it,
Yeah, I mean,
or obtain within a certain amount of time
Yeah,
is
right. You don't
probably,
wanna scare people
Or willing
away, we
to
haven't had
obtain.
enough time now.
yeah, or eligible to obtain,
Correct.
yeah.
Yes, we did talk about that, I'm sorry I omitted that.
And which ones did you feel fell into that category?
The NIMS.
Okay, yeah.
And some of the hoisting, you may have some endorsements, not others. And it's not difficult to get it if you have the background. I just don't wanna, I don't wanna scare any applicants away, the town's having a real hard time getting that.
So maybe preferred versus required on the hoisting endorsements?
Well, there's some that are required, and you can't even begin to do the job, but two ways
2A's the required.
required.
Or willingness to get, in certain instances.
Yeah, I'd just like to see the applicants apply, and then you can walk through what you do have, what you don't have, I just don't want to scare them away.
Mhm.
So that's the foreman slash mechanic, the labor position. We actually deleted the high school diploma and GED. 3 years experience, municipal or construction, valid mass driver's license, valid mass medical certificate, valid CDLB with air brake endorsement and standard transmission endorsement, valid hoisting engineer, and welding or mechanical experience helpful.
The only concern, through you, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
I would have about removing the high school diploma or GED is an industry statistics concern in that, like, attrition in any job, if the person doesn't have a high school diploma or GED, is like twice that of somebody that has a high school diploma or GED. There are exceptions, right? So if y'all wanted to pull it off, I don't have a strong
Well, we're
objection.
just making a
Ro-
recommendation.
Roger, I
Right.
understood, right? I'm just saying the thing to consider in pulling that off is, and that's just a general labor statistic, that if you, people that don't complete one thing don't tend to stick through other things.
Right.
So even if it's going back and getting your GED, that counts fundamentally for something and showing that somebody's up to
Sorry about
date in
that.
that requirement.
So on the second page, you'll see that we felt that the highway really must have one mechanic on staff. That's why that's why the foreman mechanic is an option. Or the mechanic could be a laborer, could be the superintendent, whatever, not specific to one position. We also felt that one staff member should have welding capabilities, and that it was desired that one staff member would have some fabrication ability.
So one question I have, I'm all for the mechanic. I talked to Pete Martell. I think we'd have interdepartmental use of a mechanic. The only question I have with that is, are we also gonna then be looking at purchasing like lifts and other equipment for a
There's no-
mechanic, or like what kind of mechanic are we looking for?
The Brookfield Highway Department has been able to manage working on all the equipment without lifts. There's other methods without a man lift,
Mhm.
to lift the vehicles. So in the trucks, you usually don't lift, you get under them. So I'd like to hear from the
I don't
co-chair.
feel we're trying to do anything that was done in the past,
Yeah,
but mechanical skills are definitely necessary.
right.
I
I just didn't know what direction of
I had
mechanic
no-
you were going.
I had no thoughts we were gonna hire a mechanic,
Yeah,
just someone with those skills.
just someone with mechanical skills.
Right,
Gotcha.
and all the tools that are necessary to work on any vehicle down there.
So they
are pretty
provide their
much
own tools?
No,
Oh.
they're all down there. It's very well equipped. I
Yeah.
will say the previous highway boss equipped the place very well.
We're, personally, I'm very disappointed. I think we're falling apart. I think we have fallen apart.
Mhm.
It's a little nerve-wracking.
So that's kind of the summary of staffing and the position descriptions. We did not go through the rest and comment on the rest of the position descriptions. We were kind of keying on the educational and background.
I'm not opposed to anything.
Do you want us to review the rest of the PD and make recommendations, or?
Well, yeah, I think that would be good, but how are we doing overall as we stand down there? Have you guys, I missed one meeting, so I'm not privy to the whole thing, but how do we stand overall as far as preparedness for winter and going forward?
So we, we have a lot of challenges. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And I think when we lost our previous highway superintendent, we brought in an interim to get us through a rough period, and then we hired another superintendent, which didn't work out. And so now we have another interim superintendent filling in, and she has had experience at the highway for 5 years, I believe, as the administrative assistant, and much like Cindy Thompson, was very capable at, running the administrative assistant portion of the business. And when she was selected as the interim, I think the selectmen were well aware that she had limited technical and hands on the road experience. So yeah, we've had a real challenge. We've had about 5 years of makeup work that needs to be done. We hadn't swept the roads in a long time. We haven't regraded the roads in a long time. We hadn't cleaned out catch basins for a long time. The sweeper wasn't working, the grader wasn't working. So there was any number of challenges that were faced in just getting equipment up and running. The status of, the plow equipment, Lindsay says about 80% ready. The fluid filling, which we've been asking to have done since Pete was there, I think is also about 80% done. All of the vehicles have stickers. Some of the road work, the maintenance work has been done, probably not quite to the degree that we would like in some respects. And there's still a lot left to be done. In particular, Lindsay got the $1 million grant for the Gay Road projects. We walked that project, Bruce and I walked that project a couple of weeks ago. Saw that there was a number of suggestions and recommendations that we think that we could make to the original documents that were submitted in order to get the grant. Yesterday, we walked the project with the engineer. There are some suggestions as far as drainage modifications, and the grant the grant was made for 6,000 feet of Gay Road. Gay Road is about 7,950 feet long. So we're trying to see what we can do to maybe do an overlay in some sections where the road is still in relatively good condition, and we may be able to save a considerable amount of money in doing that. We have a 10-foot wide box culvert, which is included in the plan, which we would like to we're talking with Concom about, you know, what their requirements would be for this stream. It's identified as a stream on the, unknown stream on the drawings. So we're trying to see what we can do. The existing culvert that's there is a 20-inch culvert. Our site visit, we thought maybe we could go to a 36-inch culvert, which is considerably less than a 10-foot wide box culvert. So there's a number of things that we're looking to modify in the project, and there's also a couple of culverts that need to come out or be replaced, along with some drain lines. So we're trying to get the biggest bang for the buck that we can. We need to reach out to the grant writer to see if the $1 million grant is what we can work with, or are we limited to the 6,000 feet? So that's.
So whether you're truly constrained by the 6,000 feet, or whether, so long as you stay within the budget and
Correct.
whatever the town wants to add in,
Correct.
we can.
And so the box culvert is, I think the estimate was $15,000. And so we can save considerable on just putting in a culvert. The other aspect of the project is that the grant requires that there be a engineering plans done for this project. So in reviewing the project, the advisory committee would make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to award that engineering contract to Haley Ward, who provided the preliminary engineering in order for us to get the grant. So we would recommend that you award it to them. The estimate was approximately $100,000 for that portion, but our recommendation would be to award the contract pending what their proposal is. In other words, we don't want it to come back at $150,000. We're trying.
No, because of procurement rules, does
Doesn't
that?
need procurement
Okay,
because of the grant, the way it was written.
okay.
So that would be the first order of business, would be to,
Yeah. Keep going.
so that would be the first order of business, the recommendation that we would make on the Gay Road project.
How much of this Gay Road project do you expect our highway department doing versus
That's a
being
good question,
contracted?
and there's a significant amount of it that we could do, and we should do in order to save costs. Obviously, it's less expensive for us to do it than to have a contractor do it. That's something that we need to get a commitment from, we need to decide what needs to be done and get the highway to do it.
Mhm.
I think we have a problem there, though. No experience. I'm dead serious.
That is a major problem with the existing, you're down one laborer since, he left, what, 2 months ago? So you're down one man. Ben is there and a good worker, and Ernie is there as a part-time or seasonal employee. I believe it's 18 hours a week. And then you have your foreman, Mike, and Lindsay. There is a limited amount of technical expertise and knowledge for doing some of this work. The culvert that we were just talking about, the 10-foot box culvert, Rich Chafee said that he would volunteer a excavator, and I think you said 2 days. We thought we could do it in 2 days, to put a 36-inch culvert in if we can get that approved. That would cut down a pretty significant amount of money in that project.
With the highway, we work with.
That's
some-
With the highway and some volunteers, it would,
Brad, I think you're up against the same situation that happened on Foster.
Oh, no, I agree.
yep. So it,
I
you
was-
have
I was
challenges.
disappointed.
Yeah.
We do not have the expertise that we once had.
Mm-hmm. So the core issue sounds like,
I'm sorry?
the core issue sounds like we need to work on staffing.
Well, you're going to go out, I believe, the agenda says you're going out for
Yeah.
a posting for superintendent.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's what we're gonna talk about tonight.
so the
So
su-
do we have a timeline on this grant?
It can be
the grant,
extended.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay.
So the grant has to be completed by June 29th of '25. That's the deadline for the grant, however, you can request extensions.
And Lindsay did say that you could literally get up to 3 years, but hopefully it would not get to that point.
That'd be a pretty, I mean, I guess it's certainly doable in that time, but it is a little sporty and you wouldn't be doing much else during that time period.
Well, I think the key is to,
Depending on when the season starts.
yeah, I think the key is to, if we could hire someone immediately, or get the ads out to get some help immediately, then I think we could do quite a bit in-house.
I am concerned about snow, ice, plowing. You know, we have limited staff and,
Yeah, I'm also concerned about our plows operating on that road currently and that cold patch that's coming out.
It's probably no
And the
worse than
hazards
it,
that are gonna
probably
happen.
no worse
than
than
it
it was
was
last
last year,
year, so I
right.
don't think that's much of a concern, but
Yeah.
to move forward and get additional help.
Advertise for superintendent.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was already,
The knowledge
Yeah.
isn't there.
yeah. Well, I mean, that was agreed upon when we
Yeah.
hired for the interim, that we were gonna be posting for the superintendent.
The more I've worked with her,
Be careful going into,
yeah, no, the knowledge isn't there, you know, for that part of the job.
yeah.
so that's what I have. If, Bruce, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I think you
Bobby?
spoke one time on $15,000 for the culvert. That's like $150,000 for a box culvert.
Oh,
Okay,
For a 10-foot box culvert,
We're
you
gonna
missed
try
the
to
zero.
do this in the
okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
$10,000 range, you know?
Yeah,
it's 150 for the box
Well,
culvert?
it could be up to that.
Yeah,
It's a big issue, a box culvert.
It is a big
Yeah.
issue.
Besides that,
It's overkill for that area,
oh,
way overkill.
horrible, horrible. Yeah. I think the engineer realized that when the plans we had to apply for the grant, they did offer stuff, that's all they did. They didn't charge the town for it, we're grateful for that. But they didn't really match the project. They knew someone was gonna have to engineer the project if and when the town got the grant.
mm-hmm.
So I guess, do you guys have any comments? I was there yesterday when we went over the job description for the superintendent, and I'm good with that. Do you guys have any addition?
I'd like to just vote, have Ron incorporate those changes prior to posting.
Is that a motion?
Yep.
Second?
Any discussion?
So you need to,
Go ahead.
I think you need to amend it based on what Peter mentioned about adding back in the,
Right, the superintendent, the ICS 200,
Yes.
okay.
and the NIMS
700.
700.
Yep. Second.
Is it 200 or 100?
It's 200.
200 is
super-
supervisory, 100 is,
For the foreman
Yeah.
and employee.
Yeah,
okay, so if you make that amendment, then,
Yes.
okay.
all right. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I mean, so, I think the next discussion, or I don't know if we need to vote for it, I mean, do we want to then hold off on this project and see how we do for staffing, or is there anything
No,
we should start
No, I
contracting.
think,
No.
I think we can do some stuff to move
Yeah.
forward, and we
Yeah.
can continue with road edging.
Yeah,
Mike Corder and Ben had gone down there and they did some, but they didn't realize how deep to get into it.
Yeah.
So, I did talk to Ben and Lindsay, and that is on their list.
okay.
Brad,
Yep.
any thoughts on a committee for superintendent search committee?
I guess we'd have to do that. Or do we just have the
Or we can provide a
advis-
charge to the advisory committee to act as a search committee as
I
well.
was gonna suggest
Right,
that we have
yeah.
an advisory committee that are, quote, experts with tons of experience. Probably
It's
makes
in
sense.
place.
Right,
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we, formally charge the advisory committee with acting in lieu of a highway super search committee.
Second.
any discussion?
No.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
anything else?
What did I miss, Bruce or Bob?
Tell us what minute it is.
I'm sorry?
Tell us what minute it is, what you missed. I think you covered a lot of
We-
the bases.
We do have serious
Shortfalls.
shortfalls.
If I could speak a little
Right.
bit too. This fluid film is corrosion control, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Treat the trucks so they don't corrode. They're not done to this day, all right? This is November, and we should have been done in April.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massive amount of dollars tied up in that building. A lot of our equipment is very old, that's the way we keep them. We buy them decent, keep them for lots of years. This can't go on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether an order has to be issued so this work gets completed, or whether they have to hire somebody else, on a temporary basis to complete some of these tasks. Well, we're gonna pay for it in the long run if we don't get it completed.
When I was elected in May, that was the first thing that I started on, and it's still not complete. So, it's,
I know they're short on staff, so is there another way we can help out?
I recommend that we just ask Ron to get a hold of Lindsay and just make that top priority to get that going.
I guess what I would maybe have a request from the Highway Advisory Committee, there's kind of like a top 3, top 5 projects that you all view as priority. I can certainly sit down with Lindsay, we can walk through those, and we can put them at the top of her list.
We only recommend.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't wanna go into the next item so much, or not go down this path, but I mean, if the highway is currently working 2-3 days on tree work, I
They're not.
mean,
They're not. It's one
Okay.
day a week. So, the one thing I did notice, that the loader, Bruce and I noticed, they did a great job fluid filming one of the loaders. I didn't look at all the equipment. I did look at some other equipment that wasn't done. I think just a reminder to ask them to continue to make that top priority is probably gonna be enough,
so how do you know it's 80% then?
because Lindsay said that.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
What does the highway department budget look like if you were going to outsource some of this work? I mean, is there enough money in their budget to outsource that? Because you can't take it out of payroll unless, because they're not an employee. So you have to take it out of their expense budget.
There's been very little expenditures as of right now for repairs, so I think we would be safe, but I think in fact,
I'll pull it up right now.
if they are at 80% fluid film, possibly one more day would get it done.
She thought it would be done by Friday.
So it may be,
I,
okay.
that was,
Tomorrow.
that was her estimate.
So, the other thing that we were talking about was the part-time worker.
Mm-hmm.
So are we gonna have the highway committee handle that also? Number 5,
What are we doing for the,
Is it posted?
I asked Lindsay to post it a week or so ago. I'm not sure if it's posted yet. I know she asked for the board for permission to post it, but I advised her as a department head, she would not need to. She was concerned about money in the budget. She's getting low for the part-time help, and I just told her to ask to transfer from the full-time employee to the part-time account.
Yeah, you can't actually do that transfer until the end of the year, but you can
But-
deficit spend the
Okay.
business account.
Correct.
So knowing that you can pull it from that account later.
Okay.
So we talking, snow and ice seasonal? or
No,
what?
this is
No.
just a part-time employee that's probably not gonna meet the requirement of the mechanic, the welder, but at least someone to help, and then my thought was they could at least help with tree work.
Has,
Okay. One of our other recommendations or considerations is, come springtime, to hire another seasonal worker for lawn mowing. Because I think you're,
So this,
Yeah, I'd like to have a separate discussion when it comes time for changing, yeah.
so this,
I think I'm on the same page as you.
if this seasonal employees that we're able to hire now stays around, it would mold right into lawn mowing.
and that's one of the recommendations that you see in front of you is 2 seasonal workers.
I mean, according to the last expense report that I got from, this is not,
Lindsay did indicate that,
yeah, they're only like $12,000 spent on expenses.
exactly, and she said there were about 3,600 left in the part-time position.
So, but in terms of like the earlier question about do we have enough funding that if we wanted to bring in an on-site mechanic to finish up the filming or what have you, or if there was other mechanical work that needed to be done for critical equipment, we do have the budget to do it
Mhm.
currently.
Yeah, and Bruce and I did talk about that at one point, possibility of subbing some stuff out.
Yep.
We did ask Lindsay to have somebody come in and look at the street sweeper during the winter so that they can look at it and see whether it's worth fixing or keeping or,
See if it's economically repairable.
right.
Yep.
And I'd like to have that done so that come spring, if it's, if we get it evaluated and then we can get it fixed, we get it fixed and we can use it, or we figure out what we need to do as far as a sweeper.
Offloading it.
I think this year we borrowed the one from North Brookfield.
Well, actually, we did not sweep this year. The North Brookfield sweeper's been there for 3 years.
Okay.
So just to kind of reiterate from a high level, so superintendent, foreman, and 1 laborer, and then fill the gaps with seasonal?
Yep.
Well, we have a foreman.
You have a foreman, right?
Right, I said superintendent, foreman, and a laborer, so just 3.
3 full-time
3
employees.
full-time.
3 full-time, plus the administrative assistant, because right now
Right.
you've got your superintendent doing both.
Right,
And 2 part-time seasonal workers, correct.
So to summarize, the action items are to post for another seasonal laborer and then another laborer?
No,
No, the action items right now is supposed for the superintendent with the modifications
Correct.
indicated. With an understanding that come spring, in time for mowing season, we need to post for a second seasonal worker.
Got it, okay.
so
no.
Well,
no,
you could post-
no, the second seasonal, we're requesting to post immediately
Oh, okay.
Right.
and use that person.
because we only have 1
Oh, for-
seasonal right
for-
now.
Because we lost a full-time employee,
Right,
so we would be able to make most of that up with a seasonal worker.
okay.
And your seasonal worker is 18 hours a week, I think, or
It
the
can't
present
exceed-
present
Can't
one
exceed
is,
19.
It can't exceed
Right.
20 hours for a period of 6 months.
right.
And Ernie works about 16 hours a week, 2 shifts a week.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, the only question I have is, so that's basically keeping everyone down there, and one of the things that was stated earlier was, you know, we're 5 years behind in work. Did I hear that incorrectly?
Yeah, we have a lot of edging to do, we have a lot of drainage work to do, we've got a lot of,
So we're gonna go
We've
from
got some-
4 to 3.
Well, the hope is that when we have a full-time employee in the superintendent's position, they would be a lead worker to then be able to get the work done that needs to be done. The other two employees would be able to do the laboring and manual work to assist the working superintendent. Is that correct?
Yep.
I don't,
Is there, so since we're your advisory board, does it make sense for us to come on a monthly or
That
every
was
6
said-
weeks to kind of give you an update as
I thought
to?
we said yes already.
yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
I thought we said yes
Yeah.
already,
Okay,
a prior meeting.
Okay.
Was it 2 meetings ago or 1 meeting ago?
I don't know.
So how would you like to do it? Once a month? I think once a month is pretty fair. You guys good with once a month?
Yeah, we're only meeting twice a month, the highway as
Exactly.
well. Schedule.
So it's kind of going to
About
depend
6
on the
weeks.
schedule of when our meetings are and when yours are.
So
but-
every 4 to 6 weeks, depending, probably
Okay.
after every 2 meetings a year, schedule will be on the agenda here. Would that make sense?
I think one of the things that we need to do as advisory is to make some recommendations as, like you said, that priority, and establish some dates and some timeframes and say, this is what we see as needs to be done, and you know, establish some timelines to get there.
Yeah, makes sense.
We actually get quite a bit of static when we mention doing something.
yeah,
Like the tree work, which is normal in this town for as long as I've lived here,
right.
we get static about it. We shouldn't be doing tree work. Well, I'm sorry, that's part of your job.
Mhm.
Go do it. And, I mentioned edging the roads, and I got squat got pretty heavy on that. I just don't know why. I think, is the world in a situation where nobody wants to work anymore?
Pretty much.
You know? I mean,
And that's my,
This is not our job.
this is my concern about going from 4 full-time people for the
But
last.
we only had 4 full-time people because the previous administrator said, oh, nothing's getting done, so we're gonna give you a 4th guy. But there was no basis behind it. The previous highway boss didn't request it.
But he didn't, it sounds like it wasn't managed either.
Actually, Ryan did request it.
No, I spoke with Ryan, he did not request it. He said Kelly said that's what you need, and we'll get it for you.
Well, it sounds like it didn't work because,
It didn't work. It wasn't working when we had 4 people there, so why is throwing more people at it? We need more diligent people, we don't need more bodies.
They actually told us we shouldn't be doing this. This isn't our job.
yeah. But now I'm hearing go down to 3, and this is what causes a pause.
You might have to pay up, okay?
Yeah.
Qualified help, get some experienced help if we can find them.
Yeah, well, I mean, so if you find the superintendent, that changes things.
It does.
I'm gonna take some responsibility here, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought we could run that highway department with a lesser cost, and I thought putting Lindsay in there at a lesser cost was gonna solve the problem. But after the last 6 or 8 weeks, however long it's been, we're paying 85% of the job, but we're only getting about 20% productivity. And it's not her fault. She's working hard, she's trying, but she doesn't have the experience to go out and do what needs to be done. So now I'm at the position where I think we need to pony up, pay the price what it's gonna be, whether it's 90, 95,000, I don't know what it is, but I know the surrounding towns around us, that's what they're paying. We're gonna have to pay it so that we can get 100% productivity. And I was trying to do it on the cheap, and I thought Lindsay could do it. She's an excellent worker. Her paperwork is impeccable. If you walk in the garage, it's cleaner than it's been in a long time, but the work on the road is not getting done. And I just feel like it's experience. And it's nothing that she's not doing, because she's working hard at what she's doing. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say so.
But the foreman's gonna remain unchanged. Then the labor is gonna remain unchanged.
I think we need to have a discussion over exactly the position that that person took, the foreman's position. And if they can't do the job as described in the job description, well, then maybe it should be the foreman.
And who's,
Well, that's the challenge, of not
Handling that
having a
bogey.
qualified superintendent right now, is how do we evaluate the
They
person
can
on
get through one
whether they're
hurdle and
doing
you
it
go
or
to
not.
the other.
Yeah. Because you need somebody who's qualified to make the determination whether the foreman's making the grade or not,
Yep.
so.
May I speak, Mr.
You have a long way to go. I mean, we do, and we're kind of in a bad situation, but
Just so you know, one of our members works with North Brookfield Highway. He says it's down 3 too.
right, how are they doing for a super?
I don't know, he just said it down 3 people, he says it doesn't look good.
Right,
So we're not any different than anybody else.
right.
Very sad.
Dave, did you?
Can we come up to the
Yeah,
microphone?
yeah.
Dave Holcraft, I'm gonna cut to the chase here. We need some real leadership down at that highway. These guys, they're supposed to be working at 7 o'clock, they're not out of that barn until 7:30. The tree cutter, the contractor we have, he's there at 7 o'clock, and he doesn't leave until 7:30, 7:45. I see this all the time, and other people in this town have seen it too. The same with the highway, they come all the way back for their break, it's supposed to be 10 minutes, they take a half hour, then it's 15 to get there and 15 back. I mean, I'm a taxpayer, and this is what's going on here. You guys are all trying to be nice, but no, we have a defunct highway department down here, and someone's gotta have some leadership here. You, Ron, or the select board, but something's gotta be done. And the same thing with the lunch break, they come back, they take their half hour, 45 minutes, by that time, then they go back to the job again, it's over an hour and a half. This goes on all the time, and the tree cutter, same thing. And they quit early, and they start late. This is what's going on at the highway. So it is what it is, and you people, you selectmen need to step up to the plate and get down there and see what they do at 7 o'clock, because they're not out there working. Every day. This goes on all the time in this town, and it's getting worse. They don't wanna work, we'll get some other people. Well, you have to do something. I know you're all discussing it tonight, what you're gonna do. But how come you haven't advertised this highway job? 2 months ago, it should've been advertised. Now we're in a jam, and winter's coming too. So I hope you do something. Thank you.
You have a microphone.
Beth, one topic that gets very heated is logs. Won't do.
Aren't they required to?
No.
Yeah, there's no, unlike CDL driving, like with your interstate, there's no actual requirement, however,
I don't think you would mean what
I'm
it's
not
talking
talking about driving logs.
no, I understand that, that's what I was
A
explaining.
daily log is what he said.
That's, yeah, I understand exactly what
We
you're
were
talking
out the other day trying to figure out certain things, and, well, like Lindsay said, I think they're 80% done. Oh, maybe they didn't finish those trucks. But if the information was sitting in front of her, we'd have it.
Well, I think we need to
So,
advertise for an experienced supervisor to we're lacking that.
Agreed. I guess my question is, I know prior supers have asked for some form of log or accountability, right? Have we voted it, period, that it needs to happen?
We have not, I'm gonna say no, we have not requested anything of the highway department, not since I've been on board in the last 6 months.
It is in
I-
your job description.
Yeah.
If the superintendent's not available, then the foreman must keep daily logs.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion that we send a letter to the highway department asking for a daily log of each individual there. And I don't want a 2-page paper, I just want, if they mowed, I wanna know they mowed for 8 hours or 6 hours, and if they did tree work, or if they fluid filmed the truck.
We were getting that.
No, well, we were
Kind of,
getting sort of
yeah.
a roll-up in terms of hours, but I think it's really, and I wanna be careful how it's phrased, because it's not just the equivalent of a time card and, hey, I did this for X number of hours. I think it needs to be a results-oriented type of report.
That's what we were
Right.
asking for, so
And-
like, we talked about grass mowing, how many hours do you spend doing, that's what we like.
And
the
what,
numbers.
yeah, well, how many hours, but then what got accomplished during that time period? Because you know what, I can go mow the same patch of grass for 6 hours and not get a daggone thing
No,
done,
we-
right?
We were asking for
Right.
that and never received it.
So, and I guess the question would be, well, I'll second that, but anyway, for discussion.
And the tree situation falls under the same, how many trees a day, what size, were they logging so that we can present, or the highway superintendent can present to the selectmen, this is what it cost us. This is what we got done for the highway's dollar.
And I will say that Lindsay did provide a book that was started in 2018 with all the tree data, and it's really handy to be able to go back to that. So if we could just continue that, and I know the tree warden is doing his own, but it's just nice to have that hard copy to refer back to.
The committee had also, when Pete was the superintendent, asked Pete to institute a logbook to each operator, which didn't happen. Lindsay has not issued a logbook to each operator, but she is meeting with each operator. I haven't looked at her book. I don't know if you've looked at
I
her. But so, a logbook is being kept. It's not quite the way we had proposed it, but it is being kept. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if you've looked at it. That's probably something that we should do. That logbook should be a tool, so you know what you're spending your time on, how much a percentage of the work is.
I can't remember if it was you I had the conversation with, or you I had I think it was with you that I had the conversation relative to the logbook, and if Lindsay was filling it out, but based off of functionally closing out the day with the operators.
Yeah,
To some extent,
that's how,
that's
evidently
actually-
that's how she's doing it.
That's a way to keep tabs and accountability relative to what's going on, but only if she's getting the right level of detail. So if what, and that would be one of the things that we would really need to evaluate, is like, okay, she said, hey, we're 80% done, we're gonna be done by the end of the week with the oil film, right?
So that's,
But if they're not done, right, it means either somebody's been blowing smoke up her rear and she hasn't necessarily physically validated those particular items, right?
probably our committee should take a look at those and see if we're getting the right information.
Yeah. And if the information that's recorded is actually aligned with what the physical state of stuff is, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, we won't know whether, what happened on a daily basis or an hourly basis, but in general,
No,
what
but
we
if it
expected to
says-
do.
But if it says they did edge work on this road,
Right, oh yeah, and then you can go back and look and see whether it was done. We did see that on Gay Road, when they said that they had edged it, and when we looked at it, there might have been some edging, wasn't complete for sure.
But there again, it was just lack of experience.
I agree,
really, right?
I
It's
totally
just-
agree, yep. Now, whether it was the operator, or the foreman, or the superintendent, I think it's everybody. I mean, I'm not being critical of any one individual, I'm just saying that you know, we do lack it in general.
Yep.
So another thing I'd like to bring up, which I feel like I've brought up numerous times, and I think I even brought it up with Highway Advisory before, but, you know, it's great seeing what's getting done, but I'd like some sort of template of what needs to be done each and every year. So that way, if the superintendent's not here tomorrow, someone can come in and go, here's everything, here's where all the catch basins are, this needs to be done by this date, just so we can better keep track of everything.
So the catch basins is a good example. We did talk with Pete about that because there was no inventory of catch basins.
Right.
We gave him a assessor's map and told him to have the operators identify and locations on the maps, so we knew where they were. I can't say that that's complete. We can certainly put that on for review to see where it is.
I mean, I'm not
do
looking
see-
for it next month, but I mean.
Well, I
like-
did see that they have marked the catch basin locations on the pavement, which
Yeah.
is a good thing. I hope that they have been marking the maps as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just contingency planning. If something
I
happens.
think you're right, Brad. I think because the turnover of help is greater than it used to be,
Right,
and we need to have some format, checklist that this has been accomplished,
right.
and this is expected to be accomplished.
Mhm.
And actually, a lot of that's for the entire town,
Right,
not just the highway.
right.
If you don't know what was done in the past, and you fill the seat, you're on your
You're
own
not gonna
trying
know
to
what to
figure
do.
it out.
Even the select board.
You know? And I know, I got through lots of drawers too around here to figure out what was done in the past,
Yeah,
you know?
so there's some challenges for us as a committee to come up with some further way of evaluating and suggesting and establishing priorities so that, you know, maybe it will help focus a little bit more on the items that we feel are necessary.
Well, one thing that I heard the committee mention over and over is the amount of time mowing, and then the cost of mowing, and the cost of the hourly employee that was mowing. And if we had those logs to know, we would, as a select board,
well,
we
that was
would
my
know
biggest
Yeah,
problem.
whether
and I
we
think-
should be subbing that out entirely and not tasking the highway department, because I know we're getting $33 and $35 an hour employees mowing lawns, and it shouldn't be.
So one thing I have a challenge with in this conversation, and I can try to swing back down by the highway barn, or we can just ask for a copy of it, is I think that log has been getting maintained for the last, at least 3 or 4 weeks. So has anybody reviewed it against
But
what's,
the key objective was mowing, try to get a handle on what's costing the town.
right, but it got
That
started.
season was
But,
gone.
but, well, what I was gonna say is, that's exactly what I was gonna say, is that by the time it was started, it was post-mowing season, got it, okay?
How many weeks?
According, right, I did do a quick reach out, supposedly all the equipment is 100% right now from a fluid film perspective, okay? Now,
No, it's not.
and that's,
They weren't here today.
yeah,
I put my finger on the equipment yesterday, okay?
right. So, well, and that's one of the things I think we need to calibrate is making sure it's done to standard, because it sounds like that she thinks it's done and,
She thinks it's done. I
And it
went
ain't.
out, I walked around outside there yesterday. I spent 5 hours on the highway yesterday.
yeah,
And I said, no, it's not done.
right.
And I'm not faulting her.
No, and, well, so let's make sure that she knows what good looks like, too. So, I think that's key. So,
When John did the Lewis Field, he did it for 11 years, 14. I mean, it was immaculate down there. Everything was mowed, even the grove area was all mowed that abutted Mr. Ayers' property. And now, they don't even touch that section over there. People can't sit over there like they were before, or run their dogs over there, or, I don't think that it's being kept up like it was before when the recreation had control of Lewis Field.
I agree. Did you just volunteer him then?
I hope so. Because I will agree. I will agree with you.
Yeah, it looked nice, yeah, I mean, he would take care of the leaves and rake all the leaves up and, you know, dump them over the edge and, I mean, it looked nice, people.
There again, we have to have a chat with
But now they
supervisory
don't do
and make
any
sure
of
their
that.
help is doing a efficient job.
Done, yep.
So did you say that Lindsay did respond that it is done? Is that what you said?
She thinks it's
Good,
done,
good.
but it sounds like
Nope.
according to Bruce, it's not done, so we need to understand what the delta is between what.
I will say the loader that I did see was done really well, so
And I
I
agree
will,
with you.
yeah, okay.
But, so not all the equipment's done equally well, so. So,
So do we wanna take a vote on that, or how do you wanna handle that? You want me to
so
just-
I think we already, did we
You're
already
just-
vote or no?
No, we didn't. You seconded and we had a discussion. Do you
Okay,
wanna
so-
just,
So basically, the motion is standing for you to go deliver the message that individual logbooks is not an option. So, or words to that effect, so.
I mean, you're paying them to write down what they give you. What's
Well, it's a
the
reasonable
deal?
expectation, I mean, I hate to put it this way, I'm a government contractor, I have to account for every 6 minutes of my day, right?
Yeah, that won't work down there.
It won't work down there, but fundamentally, in increments of 6 minutes, I have to account for my time.
We pay for their coffee break, we pay for their lunch, we can pay them 10 minutes before they quit at the end of the day.
To fill out the paperwork.
Just jot down what you did.
That's basically what I did, when so many hours mowing or weed whacking or whatever, I did the hourly, because I paid part-time. So that's what I did, every week, submitted in how many hours for certain jobs
Which
that I did. So they
Yep.
know, if it's not done, well, they would see the hours why.
Yep. Yep.
but we do a tremendous amount of mowing now
They do.
Yeah, but
versus
this-
years
I don't
ago.
remember.
Motion is just for Ron to go
Oh, yeah,
set
yeah,
the
yeah.
expectation that we get
So any
those
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 So would you be, would the board be willing to vote on the recommendation for the engineering contract to Haley Ward? As far as asking them for a proposal?
I'll make a motion that we, pay Haley Ward to do the engineering for Gay Road up to $100,000. And that was their estimate.
They were somewhere between 115 and 120.
So actually,
But we're
But we took some stuff out.
reducing the scope of the job.
right, I think 100,000 is about probably right.
Now, there's a catch to this one. According to Lindsay, we have to pay for it out of town funds, because there's no grant funds until she submits a set of plans, stamp plans.
This is my concern with why I question if it needs to go to
Procurement.
procurement.
Well, she is your procurement officer, and I
Right.
spoke to her about this, and I do remember some of this from the past, that certain engineering services are exempt from the,
So, one of the things I don't wanna do though is wind up with our back up against the wall if we put an NTE of 100,000 and it comes in like 105 or 110.
We can amend it later, but I just don't wanna
So-
give them without a limit.
So hear me out, here's my recommendation, okay? Is that we put a motion on the floor for a not to exceed, so request an RFP, or, give them an RFP to Haley, right? With the, provide dispensation to Ron to go ahead and approve the proposal so long as it doesn't exceed 125 with the target being the 100. Or do you not want that on paper because they're gonna watch the
I
meeting and
think
think they
just
get one?
request an RFP,
Yeah, and see what it comes out,
and see where it pops at.
yeah. And that Ron has purview to sign without consulting the board if it's a 100K or less.
I mean,
Would that make sense?
So we're,
have a number, and they're gonna present you what they feel they can do the job for.
so if, real quick, so if we're gonna end up paying for this, do we have the funds,
Well,
or is it gonna?
I think Lindsay could look into it a little bit further, or Ron, or somebody else. I think if we award the contract for engineering to Haley and Ward, they might hold off until the funds actually.
They'll hold the billing until the grant funds are available.
Wouldn't surprise me.
A lot of them, especially
But
those
the
that,
deposit down. So basically what you do is you don't necessarily have to award the money to them right away, but you can give them 25,000 or 50,000 up front, not the full 125,000.
actually,
No,
we
no,
can't-
not
we
with
can't pay
munis-
them.
not
With
with municipal
municipals, We
government.
can't pay until it's delivered.
Yeah, so you can't make down payments.
Yeah, you don't make down payments and you don't give them the money in advance. You cannot pay for
But
anything that has
that's
not
what
been
I'm
delivered.
saying, when they deliver the plans, you give them their 25,000 at that time.
Understood, when we,
Yeah.
And then pay them the balance of it when the grant money comes in.
that-
Yeah, you
that's the-
can't
Yeah,
do
but
that.
that's not the problem or
I
the,
have
fundamentally
no
is,
problem with it. I don't
yeah,
think
it's not. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was gonna say, with a major firm like Haley Ward, they're used to this type of thing, so generally what they'll do, they'll realize we're in a cash flow crunch
well, it's
until
not
they
crunch.
are actually
This is
be able to
that's
submit.
the way that this works,
Yeah.
to
The
Bruce's.
problem I see, if we can't pay Haley and Ward out of the grant, that money's gone, okay?
Right.
So if the project somehow fell under, we lost the money,
Right.
right? I don't wanna put ourselves in that situation.
So, I mean, fundamentally, a couple of questions that we probably don't have the answer to right now. We're not fully allocated on our ARPA money. Okay? So, I mean, the first place I would look to for engineering plan money for a project like this would probably be that, because we need to get it all allocated prior to the end of the year. So,
What
from
was
a,
the balance? Are we under 100,000 with that?
I think we're north of 100,000, but approximately 40,000 has already been pre-allocated, for lack of a better term, for town hall improvements. Of course, the select board does have the ability to rescind that and redirect it.
Okay.
If
Have you done
needed.
anything with the, windows for upstairs?
Again, I told you that it'd be in February when they,
Oh, so that it can't even come out of ARPA then?
well, it can, because we can vote
could
to
allocate
allocate it.
Oh, okay,
Through the
It doesn't
chair,
have to be spent.
chapter money will pay for the engineer also,
Yeah.
yeah.
but there again, we spend it there,
We don't have it other places.
we can't get
Right.
it back.
Right.
And the committee with the superintendent is trying not to use chapter money on this entire road.
Yep.
Why? We have plenty of roads we need chapter money on. Let's see what we can get done on this road without it.
Yep. So,
I could always speak with the representatives at Haley Ward, see what they expect with regards to funding and timing, and we can approach it that way.
I'm good with that.
All right,
we have a motion, a second, I think.
yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
So now we're running up against a wall. We got 15 minutes.
Well, I think we're pretty well done with the
Yep.
highway, right?
Unless you have something else.
No, I think we're all good with that part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything we can,
Well, let's do
Number
The
two.
Board of Health, I think, should be relatively quick. We
You
have
think that'll be-
Maureen here. She can give us some background
wanna-
information.
Motion to adjourn,
So,
or, meeting,
I will
second, all in favor? So the meeting, our portion is over at 7:40.
want to come up? Yeah, you think you can do it in 15 minutes?
I didn't think I needed to say anything, I'm looking for money to pay for the tree brush clearing that's been ordered by the DEP.
How much do you have in your account?
For the.
Yeah, for any, yeah,
We don't have money allocated for brush clearing.
so there's no line item, okay.
So if ARPA wasn't an option, you'd have to go to annual town meeting?
Yes,
Yeah. Or, and it's not emergency, so you can't go to stabilization.
yeah.
Right. If we do the 100, I missed what the number was. Do we have headroom to do 10,000 from ARPA?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What brush clearing are you doing at the transfer station?
Along the old landfill where they have to monitor the gas and water wells, the brush is overgrown and the testers cannot access with their equipment. So we've been ordered by the state to clear it.
There's a bunch of invasives, I forget if it's multifloral rose but it's starting to get pretty big down there.
This is all external of the fence.
Exactly.
Yes, the solar company's
Right,
been
that's right.
asked to get the.
And that multifloral rose might be in 3 and 4 inch diameter at this point. It's got out of control. It should have been taken care of
Solar
before.
company is totally responsible for everything within their.
I did see him there recently taking care of the inside.
So this is outside the fence?
Yes, this is around, so the wells are placed at the border of the property.
Yeah.
So it's beyond the fence, it's actually on the edge of the property adjacent to like MS 23 and then down around in front of where the transfer station is.
Is this,
It's not the whole thing, some of them are accessible from within the solar array.
this isn't anything that a brush mower can do?
No.
Not a brush mower, can't get in there.
Too much.
Yeah,
Just needs to be like
it's
a
been let go too long.
I know it's been an
Unfortunately,
issue.
unfortunately, there's enough saplings in there that we'd probably tear some equipment up if we went in there.
They don't handle anything inch and a half.
Yeah, but it's
Some
3
it's
inch.
bigger than that?
Yeah, some of it's probably closer to 2.5 right now. I mean, you could go in there, honestly, if we had the right crew or the right level of volunteers or the right folks with the right experience, we could probably get in there and get the big chunks out of the way and then run the brush cutter. But
And I would say after this, add this to your list
yeah,
of
Yeah.
things that need to be addressed.
Highway, okay?
right.
This
So
needs to be done soon.
no, understood. So
Yeah.
so that's why I'll make a motion to give them the 10K out of the ARPA money to get this just knocked out because
Yeah.
we've been kicking this can down the road
Right.
way too long.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright.
Okay. How about we had a
Police.
couple other small things.
So
Police
Let's
station?
just try number
You-
3 and trying to get through it and see if we can get through.
Okay.
Po-
How
Police,
about can I just make a recommendation to the council on the aging appointment just to get it knocked out? Make a
I'll-
motion that we approve the appointment of Martha Brunel. to
Second.
COA.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How about the liquor license renewal? That's probably,
I'll make a motion to renew the liquor license for 2025 at Oak Home Brewery.
second.
Any discussion?
I'll make
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion to do a one-day pour-in at Oak Home Brewery.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Just bang through the rest of them here.
Yeah, so the ones that what else did we not cover? We didn't cover.
I'll talk briefly about number 7, the police ceiling insulation project. I spoke with Tim Segan again at Tantascwa. He said with the lack of rain, they've got outdoor projects that they've been fully able to take care of. But he says as we get into the colder and rainy season, he says he knows it's gonna come. They're gonna start and get started at the police station.
When are they starting?
He did not give me a time, but he says as the weather gets colder, they're wrapping up the outside an addition.
Mhm.
And he said he couldn't pull the kids out of that addition with the weather so good. He intended to use it for fill-in work
Okay.
on rainy days, so.
Okay.
So as we get into inclement weather, he's gonna get started. And he did not give me a date, but he is saying he's gonna do it.
Do we have anything in writing?
I don't think I do. But I've known the man for several years. I
Okay.
have all the faith in him.
All right.
So we don't have a time certain, but we're next.
I'll check in and report back in 2 weeks. How's
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, and scope and cost, I guess, of what we're looking at, right?
Yep.
Do we wanna do the reports
All
and
right, I'll make a motion to acknowledge the fire department reports for August, September, and October.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the select board minutes from 9/11, 10/10, and 10/24 as previously sent.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And do we wanna,
Let's go to number 3.
okay,
Yeah, let's go to number 3.
I think I'll start out.
so I just wanna let people know that might not know, at 8 o'clock, we have an executive session, so everyone's gonna have to remove. We'll probably go back into open session after that, so you're welcome to come in after that. But we're not trying to rush anyone or kick anyone, and just,
So after our last meeting, I contacted, grab her name here, Brandy Tarantino from National Grid, and she indicated that she had not been reached out to by the tree warden regarding 2 trees on 176 Rice Corner Road and 117 or 116, I can't remember exactly. Let me 117 Gay Road. I told her that there was tree work to be done around the primary and that the trees were in really rough shape. She indicated that she would take care of both of those trees, maybe not to the severity on the 176 Rice Corner Road because it had a 2-stem tree. But she said the portion that's real big, 46-inch oak, that is in really bad condition, had so much dead wood on it that she couldn't get to the live tree that was over the primary without basically taking the bulk of the dead one down. So in doing so, she said, we're gonna basically get both of the trees. We won't get the entire of the second one, but pretty close. And then she said she's gonna get quite a bit of the one on 117. Then I contacted a surveyor because I brought up concerns about 5 of the trees that were not on town property. The surveyor met me out there and he sent me an email yesterday indicating that the trees were not on town property, and some of them as far back as 12 feet onto private property. And I indicated that in our meeting, and it really wasn't received. And when I say something, I'm pretty accurate. I generally don't blow smoke. So, Beth, you tried to award it, and I wasn't happy about it, knowing that I got commitment from National Grid to take the first 2 trees, or the 117 Race Corner and the 176 Race Corner. I knew it was gonna kill the contract. And after speaking to Dennis Tucker, and Dennis Tucker saying that the trees that he identified in this 15 group were so dangerous that the highway department couldn't participate with it, I totally disagree. Last Sunday, I went to Draper Street by myself in 3 hours and 27 minutes and took both trees down at the water department that were too dangerous for the highway department to participate. This can't continue at the cost that it's going. After speaking with Dennis yesterday, So these 15 trees that were identified came in at a cost of $16,565, roughly $1,100 a tree. And after speaking with Dennis yesterday, we're taking trees down right now at the highway department for under $200 a tree, about $184 a tree. Now these 15 might be a little tougher than some of the others that have been taken down, but under no circumstances should this have even happened from our tree warden. I understand he's volunteer, and I understand he's trying to help Brookfield. But with this kind of help, it's not putting us in a good financial spot. When we talk about the 2 trees that are over the primaries, that National Grid is more than willing to do. I also asked Brandy Tarantino to send a copy of the number of trees that she's taken down in the last few years. It's a pretty decent amount of trees. I'm not sure which. So in 21, she took down 76 trees through National Grid, 22, 14, 23, 19, and 24, 27 trees. So they're more than eager to help Brookfield, as she indicated. She said she needs to be reached out to. She does 20 towns in central Mass, so she can't help but miss a few. But we need to do a better job reaching out to National Grid rather than the taxpayers taking those down. The trees at the Cemetery Commission, and speaking with Mike Siri, who handles the tree work, he said he has his own budget to do that. He has several means through selling plots, through digging graves, through some of the other funding he has. He's always done his own tree work. So the taxpayers throughout the community should not be taking the trees down in no circumstance. I know we talked about that they're town trees, but the water department trees are funded by their own budget, and speaking to the town accountant, she said it absolutely should not have happened this way. The bid that went out shouldn't have even happened this way. I know the water department went back after the bid came out and agreed to pay up to $2,000, but if that was gonna happen, that should have happened before the bid packet went out, not after. So it was kind of closing the door after the cows already get out of the barn. So I know they agreed to pay $2,000, but I did those 2 trees by myself, 3 hours and 27 minutes, cleaned up the whole site. I brought Ron out today. He saw that. He saw the trees on Rice Corner Road over the power lines. He saw the trees as far back as 12 feet from the property line on private property. We cannot be making those mistakes. There are several other trees that are on the line that I don't have any issue with. I understand a tree warden is not a surveyor. I'm not a surveyor, but I knew those trees were not on town property. It was that obvious. Was it obvious to you, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, there's one where there was a pin that was visible. I mean, I'm certainly no surveyor either. It was a visible pin, and it was probably a good 10 to 12 feet into the private property.
So then I also want to talk about the way Dennis, our tree warden, said he identifies town property. I was at the highway department the other day with Don Taft. Don Taft has been searching for several days, maybe 10 days, to figure out the width of Gay Road. He's been to the highway department twice looking. Is that accurate, going through the records?
Yeah, I can't find anything on the records, dude.
Right.
I did get
So-
some,
So, did you get a chance to take a look online using the
I did.
GIS replacement
I
tool?
went on Mass Mapper,
Yep,
and along with some property maps from the assessors, if you look at pieces of property on either side of Gay Road, there are a couple of pins that are on plans that, and we saw the iron pins, and if you measure between those pins, it looks like it's 40 feet.
think the road can change severely. It can go to 20, it can go to 40.
40 feet does not mean that the road is in the
Right.
center. That's why you have a right of way so that the road can meander within that 40-foot right of way.
The nonverbals coming off after the other
I don't
Mr.
think-
Chafee is enough that
I
I'd
don't
like
think,
to speak.
the beginning of A Road is 40 feet. I think it's a lot less.
I think it's not, I think it's under 30.
I do too, if I'm not mistaken.
Based on the stone walls that are there, it's under 30.
Like at 6 and 7 and 8,
That's-
that's the north end?
Yes, the north end.
I can't tell you what the lot numbers are that I have on the assessors map.
The only way that you're gonna prove to the town, unless you can't hire a surveyor to survey, because it's gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You gotta get the deeds of the properties along that road and try to isolate where pins are or drill holes in the stone walls are. And they are out there.
So I want to go back on a conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, because Mr. Tucker told us in this building that he identified the property lines by going to the highway department and getting their records and using Mass Mapper. Right?
Yes.
What records did you get from the highway department?
got a-
Because Don has been there
I
twice.
got a loose leaf notebook from Ryan, which had hand-filled out sheets for each road in town, and I took the information from that and transposed it into a spreadsheet, and I gave that book back to Ryan. It should be located somewhere in that highway barn. And that information that I was given was riddled with errors. For instance, Allen Road says that the surface width of the road is 22 feet, but that the right-of-way is 20. So that would mean 2 feet of that road is on private property. It also listed a Molasses Hill and Town Farm Road as having a right-of-way of 99 feet wide.
There are parts of Town Farm Road
Yeah.
that are 99
But
feet
the
wide.
whole thing isn't 99
That's
feet
correct.
wide.
Yeah.
So I looked for an alternative source, and I went to the state's website that outlines property boundary lines and has a measuring tool. And I've been consulting both, but I've been going by the Mass Mapper website.
8 o'clock.
The problem is, no one's here, so we might as well. Oh, she is.
Yeah. Okay. So we have to make a, yeah. You got it?
I got it? Oh, usually I have the
I don't know where the
sheet.
cheat
All
sheet
right,
is.
So, I'll
Oh, here it
go ahead
is,
and
here
make
it
the
is.
motion. Yep, go ahead and make the motion to move to executive session under exemption 1 to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, mental condition, rather than the professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the dismissal or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, individual, and to reconvene into open following that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Probably not.
Kudowski, aye.
So, and Mr. Chafee has largely held the floor regarding the trees in its entirety. I just want to take us back to what the, and I get that the details relative to 2 of the trees, got it, National Grid has agreed to do. 2 of the trees you took down personally, and let's talk about that separately in a second.
Point of order, did you open the meeting back again?
We did.
You did,
We
okay.
made the motion to adjourn, and by adjourning the executive session, we were returning to the open session
Okay, thank you.
because of the way the motion was
Yeah,
made.
thank
So,
you.
Thank you for asking. But, so, where the heck was I? First of all,
The 2 trees on the water tower.
right, I do have several concerns, okay? The first of one just being, the original intent revisit the original vote, the original intent of why we even had one bucket of 15 trees in front of us, as well as the contract that we have that the highway department is supporting. All right. From the get-go, the reason for that, because we kind of rolled right over that last meeting, and I just want to make sure we make it clear. Nobody at this table has been advocating that we do all of our trees lock, stock, and barrel, the way that we did it when Ryan was superintendent, because at the time, he didn't want to engage with the tree work, okay? Nobody has said we were gonna get rid of Tree Tuesday, the bucket truck, and the highway doing trees, okay? And a lot of the, discussion last meeting was as if this 115-tree contract was gonna somehow change our overall strategy relative to routine trees, at all. So I felt like that was misrepresented and kind of, like, it was very aggressive and very attacky at, like Mr. Tucker relative to, like, we can't do this, the town can't afford this for all of the trees, and we were never talking about doing all of the trees that way, okay?
I
from the
agree with
get-go.
that.
Okay, so I just wanna make sure we ground
No,
everybody.
I'm in full agreement with that.
Okay, so, and I was gonna do like a whole, like, cause I went around with Mr. Tucker, I looked at some of the same trees, I had looked at it from the perspective of what it does say on the mass map, or I didn't print some of it out. I understand that the surveyor looked at the pins instead. I think sometimes there's disagreements between sources on what's on what property, okay? So I also take some exception to the how can you think that this was possibly on the right of way. I think there's a lot of that stuff that can get disputed depending on what sources you're taking. So I think one of the things we need to do is take the rhetoric down a bit and recognize that everybody is trying to do the right thing for the town here, okay? That said, right, we as a collective board said we were gonna table this and come back to it this meeting. And instead, you took actions which, granted, with National Grid taking the two trees down, the contract, or the potential proposal was already functionally off the table, right? So it would have already been 2 trees off, so we wouldn't have been awarding it. However, the going and taking down the 2 trees on Draper kind of unilaterally without it being a board discussion, you know, and I don't know if Mr. Kudowski wants to speak to it or not as well, is not something I am comfortable with relative to
I'm just concerned about the
the
liability it could have put the
could-
town in
which is
if
exactly-
something went
if
bad.
something had gone sideways, and here's the problem, right? And it's just like the discussion that we're having about, hey, for the last 40 years, we've taken down these trees, we've had problems, we've never hurt anybody, nothing bad has happened, okay? And I didn't bring all of the statistics or what have you, but tree work is one of the more hazardous professions and things that you can go out there and do. And can you get away with doing it for 40 years and not have something bad happen? Absolutely. But I deal with statistics for a living, and the biggest problem with statistics is it doesn't apply to the number one. The one time some crap happens is why insurance companies make money, okay? Is that they insure you against all of the times nothing happens, in the hopes that if they're insuring you, it's not gonna happen that one time that makes the statistics happen. Okay, and without clearing that with council, without clearing that and having a vote of the board and having the coverage of a vote of the board, right, that put the entire town potentially at risk if something had gone bad. Okay, so, I mean, and you've taken huge umbrage with what you perceive as either one of us taking unilateral action, even sometimes when we actually had the dispensation and the vote of the board to be the representative on a topic or to take action. And yet, apparently it's okay to just kind of go decide that this is what's right for the town. And I and you know what? God bless you, it happened in 3 hours, the stuff is gone, the trees are down. But all it would have taken is, you know, one misstep, especially doing it alone. The tree work seems like a really dangerous thing to do alone, personally. I mean, that makes me even more concerned. I would have rather heard that you brought 3 people and, you know, 4 pieces of equipment, and that you had somebody spotting, and that all of the proper, safety precautions were in place, and not, hey, I mean, you're not even really supposed to operate a chainsaw on the ground alone if you work for the town, right? I think, you know, we talk about the highway advisory being all about, in part, advising on safety, and I don't think we would have allowed one of our highway workers to do that work alone with the bucket truck. So, I just wanna make sure that we're not celebrating that behavior, right? Okay, if you wanna puff your chest out and say that was a great idea, great, but I'm not gonna celebrate that behavior. I don't think we should, you know, great, it's done, get it, okay? But the level of risk incurred there, it is bad.
Maybe if you were doing a tree, the level of risk would have been there, but not me, when that's what I do for a living. But I wanna say, so, you wanted to hand this job out 2 weeks. You made 3 different motions to hand this contract out 2 weeks ago, against the advice of listening to something that is in my wheelhouse. I stated on multiple occasions, there were, and if you look at the original list that I indicated, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trees with a question mark on one that I said that were on private property. And the one I questioned was like right on the edge, so I wasn't making a big stink about that. But then I followed it up with a surveyor. You made motion after motion after motion to hand this contract out, knowing that I made the statement and concern about the waste of funds of $16,565. So let me finish, I didn't interrupt you. So then you said, you talked about insurance and liability. I carry more insurance than the tree guy. So the town was covered. And that wouldn't be the first time that I worked for this town without help. I put all the Christmas lights up on the common last year. I put all the 4th of July banners up on the town hall last year. I put 2 10-wheel loads of stone in the ground that I donated, $900 at Lewis Field with an excavator. I picked up leaves down there. I've done countless things for this town to donate. But when our tree warden is telling us that a tree is too difficult for the highway to participate. Now, when I say participate, I'm talking about picking brush up off the ground that the professional tree guy cut and putting it into the chipper. We have, I counted 12 chainsaws down at the highway department. We have a chipper that we've used since the 90s. The one before that was even older, but we've had a chipper, I believe, that the town bought new in the 90s. That's Herb Chafee. Is that about right?
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Do we have a chipper that we bought in the 90s that the town possesses?
Yes.
We have a truck set up for chipping brush with a chip box on it. So when I talk about assisting, I'm not suggesting a highway worker get in the bucket of a loader and we lift them up as high as possible. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that these individuals at the highway department, that they've done for 5 decades that I know of, grab the brush that's on the ground and put it through the chipper. So, and then you talked about me doing something unilateral. I've asked you not to meet with the individual that's suing the town. And the previous board gave you permission to meet with him. But this board didn't. And I've asked you to just do it in an open, public forum. That's it. You can meet with whoever you want. You told me that you don't have to have my permission to meet with someone. You don't. But how it looks to the town when you continually meet with the person that's suing the town.
Okay, time out.
No, don't
No,
interrupt,
seriously.
because you did it
Seriously,
twice.
time out.
You did it twice. Am I correct, Ron?
We
when that could have easily been done in an open public meeting. No reason to not do it in an open forum, especially with the amount of controversy that that has brought. And the fact that the individual is suing the town over something that's ridiculous. All right, I'll back off.
Okay,
I'll
yeah,
back off
so,
that.
so,
But my point is,
and I knew you
I'm
were
not
gonna
your
go there, but that's
boss,
fine.
I'm not your boss, and I can't tell you what to do, but you're not my boss, and the people that elected me in the town elected me to do change, and they knew I was gonna be a hard worker, and I'm gonna continue to do that. And I'm not ever gonna hand out a contract for $16,000 like you were willing to do. And if this were in your wheelhouse, if this was to buy a new computer, and you wanted a couple weeks to table it, I would give you all that respect. But you fought as hard as you could to hand this contract out that should have never been handed out. And lastly, I'm gonna say, based on the tree warden's report that he gave yesterday, he's taken down 43 trees in his town and trimmed one in 6.5 days to total $7,800 in cost. And he did more than half of the amount of trees that he did last year. Last year's trees, he did 89 trees at $62,000. This year he's done, well, not more than half, just about half of those trees with $7,800. So the fact, and then lastly, you talked about the reason we were getting 2 bids. The reason we were getting the bid on the group, the trees, was to see what the cost was, not to then just send it out. And the reason, and we were supposed to be getting equivalent trees at the 15 as, do you remember that part? There was supposed to be equivalent trees, because it's in the minutes of the meeting. The 15 trees that he was gonna send out to contract were supposed to be the equivalent of what we were doing at the day rate. And Mr. Tucker did just the opposite. He said, these are extremely difficult trees that the highway department should not be participating in. So my whole point in taking those 2 trees down, Beth, was to prove that Mr. Tucker is not doing what he should be for this town when it comes to cost savings. He might be doing a great job as far as safety, and that's his focus. But for 5 decades that I'm aware of, the highway department's worked with the tree company, and I firmly believe for the sake of the residents and the taxes that we pay, it needs to continue that way. Because we got a bad deal last year when we paid $62,000 to take down 89 trees. We've taken down half of that for $7,800. So I don't want to participate in any more bid work other than the daily rate. And that's what's good for Brookfield. I'm done.
The only thing I disagree with that is that I think if we had a different crew at the highway department that I was comfortable with, and if they were comfortable with it, then I'd be all for that.
With this inferior crew that we have now, we did 43 trees for $7,800.
And I looked at the invoices and I can't really make heads or tail of what the challenge is of those trees.
What does that mean?
It means, I mean, if it's
Were they-
43
were they- were they-
10-inch
were they-
trees,
yeah,
I have no
what is the
idea.
size of the tree?
Well, I asked
It's
Mr.
hard to
Ducker to
compare
do that.
trees. Like, if I said to you, I cut down 100 trees, and I cut down 100 4-inch diameter trees that were 10 feet tall, clearly I could probably do that in a few hours. But if then I said I cut down 100 trees that were 40 inches in diameter and 75 feet tall, that would take a considerable amount of time. So when you talk numbers of trees, you need a comparison of size as well. You can't just say
Right,
70-something trees.
Proximity to wires,
But
Proximity to the
vehicles.
targets.
But in all
yeah.
reality, when we do 100 trees on average in town, it pretty much averages out. And to prove that out, these are some of the previous tree wardens' records. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, they took down 37 trees. Pretty darn close. Some of these trees are huge. 32, 34, 32, 38, 38, 42. Those are big trees.
But you also had Herb and Donnie doing it, and I've seen them mark.
So those two did less than what our crew did now.
Right.
So that's not going good for you, Brad. So,
Their crew did less
yeah,
than what the current crew did.
yeah, yeah, I just said that.
But what did the current?
37
Right,
trees
but what did the
in
current-
7 days.
But what did the current crew do for the size of trees? Do we have that listed? Or what the
Over the course of
'Cause I
the
see what
time,
this
it's pretty
is.
much gonna equal out. I asked Mr. Tucker to provide the size of the trees. And in his report, he does have the size of the trees. And they're close. These are a little smaller, and that would explain why he maybe took down more.
Down a few, yeah, took a few more.
But they average out.
The proximity to a target makes a difference too, and a lot of those trees were on Long Hill Road abutting state property where they could just be dropped and cleaned up pretty easily. If you put it next to a target, say like a structure, or if it's near a wire or fence, it takes a lot more time.
But Dennis, my point is, you did 89 trees for 62,000. We have records of big trees that were taken down
Yeah.
with budgets of $12,000 and $16,000. The numbers are not even
Yeah,
close.
but Mr. Chafee, under that particular highway superintendent, we need to take the superintendent into consideration.
No,
Okay.
because when he did that, there was no superintendent involved. He did it without the highway
I
department.
understand
Okay.
that, but the reason why there was no highway superintendent involved was that Ryan fundamentally refused to do tree work.
That's not, so
Or
Ryan
expressed-
was gone when he did the tree. When Dennis Tucker was doing the tree work, I believe Ryan was gone.
No,
No,
it was,
Ryan-
no,
Ryan was
Ryan
There
was
was
here.
a
for
significant
the-
amount of
yeah.
overlap, and a big chunk of those trees, and fundamentally.
Do you have the dates that you started those last year?
I don't have it with me, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
get that information.
Yeah.
Because I know there was an 8-month period where trees didn't get done.
I started in December, I believe, of 2022. was it? And the reason I volunteered is because
Nothing
there's a
was
lot of
happening.
dead trees in town and nothing was getting
So,
done.
so that's why I started this with saying, none of what we had talked about relative to the contracts ever implied that we weren't gonna
I agree
continue to
with
do
that.
it with the highway.
Yeah, I
Okay?
fully agree.
All right, so, and again, you're presenting it as, it,
Whether it was the whole budget or the 16,000,
right, so,
I didn't agree with it.
okay, so, and you know what? Yep, I pushed to get it done, because honestly,
We've got to get.
we gotta get the trees done, right?
These
And
trees
then-
on
and
this
then-
list are,
And then when,
granted, I understand some of them might not be on our property.
Can I speak to that for a minute?
Yeah.
We just had a debate about the right-of-way on Gay Road where those trees are located. And again, like Mr. Chafee pointed out, I am not a surveyor. I used the best information I had available to me. The information that I got from the highway department was full of errors, so I switched to using Mass Mapper. I did consult both every time. I would like to point out too that the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87, the shade tree law, does take into account the fact that I'm not a surveyor. And I could read the whole thing, but there's some of it, it says that if the tree is in doubt as to whether or not it's within the town's right-of-way, it will be deemed a town tree until proven otherwise. So I go out, I make the best information I have available to me, and I go out and I try to determine whether a tree is on town
And it's
property.
hazardous to us, not
Well,
hazardous.
yeah,
to-
I'm not just picking trees to take them down. If I find a hazardous tree, I consult my information, I use the best information I have to determine if it's on town property or not, and the law allows for me to make a mistake.
That's a question, since you brought up chapter 87.
Yes.
When have the hearings been for these
Well,
trees?
you only need to do a hearing if you're going to take down a healthy tree. There are 6 exceptions to that. And a dead, diseased, or dying tree is within my authority to recommend for removal without a hearing. I only need a hearing if it's a healthy tree, and then it's open to the public. One way to look at it is that trees in town don't belong to the town, they belong to the taxpayers, to the residents. So if we're gonna cut down a healthy tree that otherwise wouldn't need to come down, the residents of the town get to have a say as to whether it can come down or not.
And where does it say that in chapter 87?
Chapter 87, Section 5 describes the exceptions to that. If you're widening a road, you don't need a tree hearing. If it's an invasive pest, you don't need a tree hearing. If it's dead, diseased, or dying, you don't need a tree hearing. A weird one, if you're moving a building, you don't need a tree hearing, but it's in section 5 of chapter 87.
Yeah, it just says to me less than one,
Yeah,
less than
if it's
one,
under an
1.5
inch and a half,
inches in diameter, 1 foot from the ground, they don't need a hearing.
yeah, keep going down, it explains all the other exceptions as well.
Can you reread what you said about viewing it as a town tree?
Yeah, I'll read it for you if that helps. This is, all trees within a public way or on the boundaries thereof, including trees planted in accordance with the provisions of section 7, shall be public shade trees. And when it appears in any proceeding in which the ownership of or rights in a tree are material to issue, that from length of time or otherwise, the boundaries of the highway cannot be made certain by records or monuments, and that for that reason is doubtful whether the tree is within the highway, it shall be taken to be within the highway and to be public property until the contrary is shown.
I guess my question would be,
Hold on. She's been eager over here.
Through the chair to the tree warden,
Yes.
you're saying that sometimes they're in question whether or not the town owns that tree or doesn't own that tree.
Absolutely.
Do you ever go and speak to the owner of the property that the tree
all the
abuts
time.
and ask them where their property line is?
I speak to as many homeowners as I can. First of all, it avoids conflict. I'd like to let them know that I'm gonna take down a tree. So I do speak to as many property owners as are available home when I'm inspecting trees. And of course, if the resident calls and requests, I'll meet with the resident and talk about their concern and try to determine if the tree is within the right of way or not.
Well, I guess the question is that Ron went out you went out on the properties and you found the actual markers for the tree line, for the property line that
I
the
did-
people own.
I did not find that, yeah.
I mean, if he clearly could see that marker and you couldn't see it?
I did not see it.
12 feet into the property
I
line?
simply measured from the tree to the center of the road with the information I had from Mass Mapper. And it was within what I believed from the software. And again, that software is not survey grade. It's just giving me a guideline of what I think if the tree is or within our right of way, if not.
But you
Again, it's not a
didn't see the
survey.
same marker?
I did not see the marker, no. I marked a lot of trees on that road that day and I didn't notice it.
My question would be, Beth brought up liability for Mr. Chafee, so my question would be, what happens if the contractor took down the tree what happens if we didn't get it surveyed and we went through the contract and he took down the tree, or the contractor took down the tree? What liability does the town have now, because it wasn't even on town property?
It's a good question.
Both. It says both.
So if the tree hit the house, or the tree hit somebody's car driving by, or hit a worker,
Well, that would be the contractor.
The contractor would have insurance for that.
so the town wouldn't be liable, so then, but
Not if you had a car or the house would be the contractor's fault.
still, so is the town liable?
Possibly.
Town's 100% liable no matter what.
Yeah, so if the town's liable, wouldn't we wanna make sure 100% that it's on town property? And it's
Which
not
would be
even-
cost prohibitive to
yeah,
survey
and
it
I get
every time,
You're
yeah.
not a surveyor, and a surveyor is expensive, but as a homeowner and a taxpayer, that's concerning for me.
Yeah. And again, we don't take down live trees.
I know,
So,
yeah,
so
I get
it would be a
I get
dead tree, which I'm sure, even if we did cut down the wrong tree, I don't think they would be too upset that we took down the dead tree for them.
I don't know.
Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, it depends.
You'll cut a dead branch off a living.
Yes, if we were trimming it, yeah. Which we don't do much of because of the amount of dead trees in town.
But I would say as a good practice, any stone wall, you shouldn't be marking the trees behind it.
Well, if it's a
Because-
historic stone wall, if it's a landscaped wall, like the wall you're talking about is with Riverstone, it looks more like a landscape feature than a historic stone wall to me.
It looks to me like a historic stone wall that someone put a little time into rebuilding is what it was, but, and then I have pictures of additional trees throughout town that are beyond the town property up by the on Long Hill Road. They're clearly over the wall. They're on the back side of the wall. That, we should not be doing that.
Again, stone walls typically are historically boundary lines, but they're not always. They're not always the boundary line of the property.
The one on Long Hill that I have a picture of is,
And within a road too, the right-of-way can vary not just from road to road, but within the road. So it is sometimes difficult to determine if the tree is on town property or not.
Did you still have something, or are you good?
Like I said earlier, if you want to find out where the trees are, you gotta go to the deeds of the properties where the trees are at and try to find out where the property lines are. That's the only way it can be done. You can't do it by this mass whatever, because it doesn't work. You gotta go by the physical deeds of the properties.
so my only concern is the cost to the taxpayer. That's my concern. And I've proven out now, this is the second time, because this, in July when we did this, the rate was a couple $100 a tree. Dennis's rate, when he did it without the involvement of the highway department, was $701. And now, these 16 trees that he deemed dangerous, that would have been a cost of $1,100 per tree to the taxpayer. How much more do I have to prove that it's better to have the highway that we
I
have?
think one thing I'm sorry, Brett,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't disagree with you. What I'm saying is, under the current circumstances of the situation we're in,
Brad, you're saying that, but they're doing the tree work. They're doing the tree work on Tuesdays. They did 43 trees, according to Dennis. They've worked 6 Tuesdays. They've done.
but not only Tuesdays.
Right, but.
Only
but
Tuesdays.
Is it-
I think one of the things to consider, right, and I understand that Mike has said that the cemetery is gonna deal with their own trees. I think the trees that are down there, I hope that they take care of it sooner rather than later, because I will tell you, I have looked at those trees. They are getting ready to go, and there's a bunch of tombstones, there's a potential for damage to the gate, there's a lot of potential risk.
I don't
those two
have a,
particular trees. I'm just saying
Yeah,
is
I
that,
get it.
is that some of these, I hear what you're saying, I respect what you're saying relative to that half of what was on there probably should not have been on the list, okay? I would say my recommendation going forward is I still think that some of the ones that are on that list, we don't want highway to touch.
they don't touch the tree.
I get that they don't touch the tree, but
But one of my concerns with the more technical trees that I put on that list is, when you're taking down a tree next to a structure, for instance, the tree by the pavilion in Lewisfield, unless you want to spend all day there cutting little pieces and dropping to the ground, typically what a tree crew will do is they'll rope larger limbs off and swing them away from the structure. I don't believe we have anybody on the highway department that has experience in roping and dealing with that. And several of those trees had targets, like the ones by the cemetery, the gate, the tombstones. I just felt it would be best to have a professional tree crew do those rather than the highway department.
Because we only have one person that comes with that, or.
One person comes with the truck,
There's
so-
only one person with that, so the rest of the work is all on the other people that are to be there.
Exactly, and there's times things need to be roped.
So when I started out doing tree work, Dennis, I had no experience with it. But the guy in the tree had all the experience. He told me, okay, take the rope, take 2 wraps around the trunk of the tree. You're gonna see the tree's gonna come in a big section. You're just gonna hold it, it's no pressure on it. And then you take the wrap and you start letting the wrap off the tree. And when you do, you lower the rope down. Am I correct, Herb?
Yes. And just to let you know, there is one guy at the highway department that's got 4 years' experience doing tree work.
6 years, or 8 years. He's been there for
I'm
almost 10.
talking previous,
Yeah.
4 years anyways, that he's done tree work
So,
like that.
so we have a 21-year-old guy down there that can easily follow those instructions, can easily be trained. He's hoping to stay in Brookfield for many years. There's no sense in not training him to do tree work at a much lesser cost, several $100s a
And
tree.
again, we're not saying that that's not
But he's
exactly what
saying
we're
that
doing.
I'm saying that every tree to come down should come down with the assistance of the highway department so that it's under $200 a tree and not at the
And
1,100.
let's just make sure that we also,
Can we factor that into, like, the $200 tree number does not take into account the highway department's
It doesn't.
personnel, their pay, or the time it takes them to go get the wood on a day that they're not doing the tree work. Because we want to maximize the time that the aerial lift is there doing the work, so they typically go back the following day to pick up the wood.
so
If
Rich,
there's
based on
additional
your
hours.
experience, I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
no
but
problem.
I'm gonna go ahead and interrupt you for a second. Based on your experience, I know you said you did the 2 trees and all of, so apparently, was it chipped, or did you just have equipment and haul the trees?
Some was chipped, and I picked up all the butt logs with an excavator.
For the next-
So I did it all in the 3.5 hours, and like Dennis says, they don't do that all at once, they come back a second day. But it's being done so inefficiently, they're going out with a 1-ton dump truck, picking it up with a backhoe, rather than using the backhoe, the forks of the loader, and putting it in a 10-wheel dump truck that the highway department did for as long as Herb Chafee worked there. And secondly, the cost is, Dennis is talking about efficiency. He's moving that tree truck from Long Hill to Molasses Hill to Weber Road, all in the same day. It's not being done efficiently. When Herb was on the highway department, I'd see him hit one road and go right up the road, and then when they were done, they'd go to the next. Do you know what it costs to keep moving that truck around? As Dennis just said, he's talking about efficiency.
And
We're
the
not
days-
getting the efficiency.
The days we did that, I had several resident requests. One at 99 Weber Road, a tree had broken off near where the kids have a school bus stop. He was concerned with that. The other one was, I forget the address, but we had several calls. People were concerned, so I sent them out to address those concerns, which may not have been the most efficient way, but I wanted to address those concerns for the residents. So I did have them move from place
I
to
think
place.
all 6 days they were out, they moved around. They did not stay in one spot on all 6 days.
Well, not all the trees are located in the same spot, so you're gonna have to move between places.
But not between roads.
The other point that I often make, and the benefit of hiring a contractor, is you eliminate a lot of liability. So to save a few $100s, excuse me, say again?
We just heard that the town takes 100% of the liability.
Well, yes and no. It depends on what the lawyers determine if something bad were to happen. But if a contractor handles it and one of his employees gets hurt, it's his workers' compensation that covers it, not the town's. And so you remove yourself from some of the liability, a lot of the liability actually, and sure, you save a few $100, but you eliminate the liability by hiring a contractor. You take on the liability using your own employees.
That isn't true.
Herb?
That's not true.
That's one of the benefits of hiring a contractor.
Not necessarily, because no matter what, the town will be listed as when someone sues, and they're
True.
gonna sue the contractor, but they're also
Well,
going to
sue
be
the
the
Yeah,
town.
they sue everybody, but,
Liability.
but my point being is if no one from the town was there, it's less likely that they'd be
Doesn't
held
matter.
liable.
It's on town property, it's automatic.
And when the contractor submits a liability, wouldn't the town be named? The town should be named at the bottom.
Probably, yeah, I would imagine that everybody would get sued like Mr. Chafee said. But again, if you weren't there, less likely to be
Found
held, found culpable, exactly.
I got a couple concerns here. I spoke to you, Dennis, when you first come on board as a tree warden, and you were very adamant that you did not want the highway taking part in cutting trees. Do you remember that conversation?
I do not.
And you're still adamant about the highway not performing with the town. You don't want your tree cutter.
I prefer
it-
experienced tree workers, yes.
It kind of raises, and now you got this 15 bucket, as Beth calls, 15 bucket of trees, and you want the contractor to do that group too.
Yes.
Kind of raises a lot of questions to me that you're trying to promote all this work for this tree cutter. And
Well, I was asked by this board to do a 15 tree contract. That was not my own idea.
no, I understand that, but you've been promoting, since you've been on board, for your tree cutter, the same guy, to keep cutting the trees.
Well, I don't understand the question.
Well, the question is, you don't want the highway to do any of the trees, you want this one particular contractor to cut the trees.
Well, let me back up first. All of these contracts are awarded by sealed bid,
Yep, I realize that.
and the lowest bidder gets the contract.
Right.
So I have no influence over which contractor was selected. It's selected by the lowest.
But it's been the
eligible
same
bidder.
contractor since you've been on board, correct?
Well, it's been the same contractor since Serb Chafee.
On board. It's the same guy that's been doing trees here for how
Well,
many
he
years?
used a guy at a Brimfield for a while, he's used a bunch.
But it doesn't have to go to the lowest bidder.
But I
Well-
guess it doesn't have to, but typically
We've
you
never
set
awarded it to anyone but.
you set a standard of what you're looking for, and then the lowest bidder
But
is
if the
usually
lowest
what.
bidder, not saying that he's not qualified, but I don't even know who it is, but if the lowest bidder came in as lowest bidder, but he couldn't provide liability or whatever,
Then
then
we
you
would,
go
no,
to the
obviously,
go with
if
the
he
lower
didn't,
contractor.
if he didn't meet the standards set forth in the contract, we would not accept his bid.
But I'm getting back to now,
Yeah, we have a plan to work.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what to do.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, I have a question, because you're talking about the contract being awarded. Isn't it true that Mr. Shakey's son lost lost one of the bids, lost the contract?
It's also true that I want the
I'm asking
day
the tree
rate.
warden. I'm asking the tree warden, if you don't mind.
No, I'm gonna answer that. I'm gonna answer that first.
Then
It's
I'm asking
also
through the
true
chair-
that
through
my
the chair
son
for it.
lost the bid, but it's also true that I want the tree work to go to the individual that Mr. Tucker wants to hire.
So your son did lose the bid?
Well, actually, no one won the bid. Well,
Yeah.
the lowest bidder, it hasn't been awarded, so
Yeah,
yes, but
yeah.
Mr. Chafee's son did put in a bid.
It was
And
never
he wasn't
awarded,
the lowest.
and now it really, it functionally can't be fundamentally, so, you know, to a certain extent, although, based on the fact that
Sabotaged
National.
by
so
National
based-
Grid,
Based
yeah.
on the fact that
Yeah,
National
you're right,
Grid.
sabotage.
Based on the fact that National Grid says they would take 2 trees, functionally speaking, it's a defective RFP.
Sabotage, but saving the
I
town a lot of
did
money.
want to make a point to that too. So National Grid has a right-of-way through the trees for their wires. And National Grid, at those 2 trees, they will not remove the entire tree. They're just going to remove the threat to their wires. So ultimately, we will have to go back and remove the rest of that tree, those trees.
But first, Dennis, the first part of one of those trees is a massive 48-inch oak.
Yes, it is.
It's
It's a
got
large
dead
oak.
wood all over it.
Which is why I thought it was
Can
one
I finish?
technical tree, yeah.
So it's got massive amount of dead wood all around it.
Yeah.
And the tree that's over the wire is not actually dead.
True.
It's not
It
dead.
is. It is.
So what Brandy Tarantino at National Grid said was, in order for her to work on that live portion of the tree that's there, she's gonna take the bulk of the dead wood off the 48-inch tree to make it safe to work on that.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be great.
you're right, they're not gonna take the whole thing, but they're gonna take more than 3/4 of it just to make it safe.
Okay.
And that's the bulk of the cost in that tree.
and when is that gonna get done, did she say?
She didn't say.
The one tree too was marked by National Grid, and it had been marked for years, so they had never come back to take it. That's the other
I mean,
one
if
that-
something got slipped through the crack, I mean, that would be up to you to give a call and say,
And
because
I
she
have
said
told,
that she.
last year I got Brandy to do 21 trees on, well, 19, I think, on Allen Road. I
She,
reached out
she
to her.
did several trees last year, yeah, but you didn't reach out to her this year, she said.
I did not ask her about those 2 trees, no, correct.
Brad, may I finish?
Yep.
So, getting back, is it true that you worked with this guy together at Rattler Tree?
Yeah, over 20 years ago, and I did,
Okay.
I do want to make that clear too. When Kelly was the town administrator, I disclosed that I worked with Mr. Rust. I also disclosed that another one of the bidders, Northeastern Tree, I worked with Dan as well. He's one of my contractors currently. So I know a lot of these guys. Anybody who's been in this industry this long, we go to the same annual conferences, we go to the same continuing education classes, the same safety training. So most of us know each other. So at some point, that's why I made that clear. A lot of the guys that bid on this, I know personally.
But our highway department always takes the trees, they always work with the tree contractor. Now, winter's coming on, what is the highway department gonna do? We're gonna have all these people down, what are they gonna do? They don't do
What did they do the years when no trees were getting done?
They do tree work in the winter.
Well, what about the years that no trees were getting done, which is why I volunteered?
Well, when you came on board, there was an 8-month period while you were tree warden and nothing got cut.
Because
And
I
asked
had no
Ryan-
money.
I
I had to wait
asked-
till the
there
beginning
was
of
money, I
fiscal.
asked Ryan, and he said because Dennis hasn't come back to me and get the thing going.
No, that's not true.
Oh, it is
The-
true.
The
I talked
annual
to Ryan.
budget funds were expended when I started this.
There's been money there right along, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to just say one thing, why don't we just simply say thank you to Mr. Shafee for cutting the 2 trees down in the water department, for volunteering our time.
Dennis, could we ask you, or can I ask you to just have the highway department do the work? I spoke with someone today.
We've been working with them, yeah.
But the original intent of this 15-tree bucket was to find out what would be the least cost to the town. That was the original intent. But then you took the 15 toughest trees to take it out. So we never asked you to take the 15 toughest trees in town to put those into a bid. Do you think you?
So here's the thing. All right. One, we don't have, the original intent was also to collect all the highway hours associated with that, so we were comparing apples to apples, and we haven't gotten those reports.
The highway
from the
was never in,
department.
that was not in part of
Well-
that motion
well,
at
that
all.
was
Or
part
the
of
minutes.
discussion.
That is the cost,
It was
though.
part of the discussion, right? It may not have made its way into the minutes, but that was part of the discussion.
I don't remember that,
Okay,
and it's not in the
So-
minutes.
understood. Let's put it this way. My recollection was a big piece of it was also to gather the information so that we were comparing apples to apples in terms of cost. However, I'm just gonna give an opinion, right, and you've already made it clear that you don't think my opinion's worth anything, and clearly, most of the folks here agree that we should be, like, doing stuff like taking down the trees without verifying whatever, okay?
Well, Beth,
So,
your
no, let me
opinion doing
finish,
tree work is,
right.
I'm not gonna take your opinion doing tree work, because you don't do tree
Okay,
work.
that's fine. I actually think it was, I think the one thing I agree with how the tree warden put what he considered technical trees on that contract, is I think from a standpoint of overall strategy and risk mitigation, there were some extraneous trees that were not as technically hard, that were like right spitting distance to the trees that were on there, okay? But I don't think it's a bad strategy to put some of the nastier trees on an all-in contract. I don't think that's necessarily a bad practice, so let's not present it as a bad practice. And it probably shouldn't be apples and oranges, because I think the highway department can and should do the routine trees. But if we don't have people who are fundamentally well-trained and well-experienced, and I get that at least one of them has some experience, but
He's also it's a different time compared to what it was.
right, and it's also maybe a decade later, and he may not be as capable, right? It makes sense to look at it, now one of the things I think we need to do is communicate better, right? And I think if there are other technical trees that are either close to wires, close to buildings, right? Items like that, I think the tree warden needs to run a proposal list through us, all right, of what he wants to put on lock, stock, and barrel contracts.
I'm not gonna be in favor of it, because he deemed those 2 trees at the water tower to be two of the most dangerous trees in town. And they're not my words, they're the tree wardens. And he is not willing to say, you know what, those were not, I guess they were not dangerous. But he said they were. And I took them down in 3 hours by myself and cleaned up the wood. And there's no reason our highway department can't
But
continue
you're
to do
comparing
it.
yourself to the highway department.
I'm one person, there's several
Yeah,
people,
and
and his professional tree guy.
But I'm
Did you forget that we hired a professional
a
tree guy
professional
too?
tree guy with guys that aren't, I don't know.
Brad,
The
their
two trees by the
performance is-
water tower, not necessarily were technical or dangerous. I had a discussion with Dennis Clark, and he was concerned with some kind of underground utility box, and didn't want heavy equipment in the area, and he didn't want the trees dropped. He wanted them brought down in a small place to try to protect the underground utility. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
It was involved.
And we discussed doing it in the winter when the ground was frozen, and so that's why those two trees made it to the list, to protect the underground utility or valve or whatever.
I guess we're not gonna agree, because for the 5 decades that I'm aware of, the highway department has done the trees. It's the very most cost-effective. Like Mr. Holcraft said, if they're not doing tree work, what are they gonna be doing? Unless they're plowing snow.
Well, we just came up before the meeting, though, with how they were 5 years back, and there's a big backlog of what they need to be
We
doing.
don't have the people there to fix the equipment that has been neglected.
Right.
So
No,
we're
but I
still not gonna get to that point, but I also
think what-
wanna say, I also wanna say that we have as much tree work being done on a part-time basis as before, and I asked our highway superintendent to hire a part-time employee 2 weeks ago, and she gave me every excuse in the world why we couldn't hire it, right down to be taking food out of the mouth of the other part-time employee that we have. And her words were exactly, Dennis Tucker said it's not safe for us to do it, so why would I go against him? And that's her statement. And one of the other highway employees down there, the foreman, gave me a hard time and told me if I want to do the tree work, do it myself, because he wasn't gonna do it, or he didn't wanna do it. So there's a lot more to this. So Dennis Tucker's telling them it's not safe, so then they're building on that. Now they don't have to do tree work, which is hard and dangerous. She doesn't wanna hire another part-time employee because it's gonna take food out of the mouth of the other employee. This thing's just getting spun around, and they're gonna do less work.
I would like to mention one more thing. Safety is always my #1 concern, no matter what. Bottom line, trees, number of trees taken down is secondary, and I'll never apologize for that. I don't want people getting hurt. At the end of the day, if no one got hurt, nothing got broken, it was an outstanding day as far as I'm concerned. And secondly, I don't think we're talking about the true cost of using the highway department. Just to make the numbers simple, throw out simple math. You have 4 guys working with the contractor. The contractor charges us $1,200 a day. If you add in, let's say $25 an hour, which we know they make more than that, just to keep the math simple, it's 4 guys, $25 an hour, that's $100 an hour, times an
It's
8-hour
three.
day.
It's been 3,
All
just to
right.
make it clear, so 75.
75, so it's another, what? It's 75 times 8.
It's 560.
I have a question.
Yeah,
This bid of $1,200 a day,
yes.
is that based on him doing it by himself?
No, that's working with the highway department.
Then that's ridiculous.
Well, to finish my point, Deron, did you do the simple
Can I
math?
finish before you interrupt me? I think, quite honestly, if he was the lowest bid, then it should be sent back out to bid. Because at $1,200 a day, unless he's out there working an 8 or 9 hour day,
He works an 8-hour day.
No,
but it doesn't sound like he works an 8 hour
no
day.
way.
So, I mean, with the highway department's help,
He was the lowest bidder at 1,200.
okay? But it sounds like half of these trees can be taken down by the highway department solely without utilizing this gentleman, #1. #2, he's already worked with our highway department,
Yes.
okay? So we may have a new kid there that's gonna push the brush into the shredder, or whatever they call it. But, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do that. And Mike, who's been at the highway department all these years, he already knows what he's doing. He may not be overly physically able to do it like he did 8 years ago, but none of us can. But he still has the knowledge of what to do. So why would we not want the highway department there, who have the experience,
The goal
who
is
have
what
the
we're doing.
use,
So we're.
that can help out, like Rich said. And that way, it's not costing us as much money, and if this guy is
That's the
charge
point I was-
$1,200 a day, that's outrageous.
That's the point I was trying to get to. So, Ron, did you do the simple math?
Yeah, the math for an 8-hour day for the highway department personnel would be $600 plus the $181, is that correct, Rich?
Yeah.
On your figures, so $780.
You're paying them anyway, though. They
Well,
work
it's
and they're
true,
already working.
true, but we're trying to compare apples and oranges here. So roughly, I'd say 600, some plus the 1,200, we're at $1,800 a day. The contractor last year did everything for $1,800 a day. He cut down a tree, he chipped the tree, he took the wood away and disposed of it as well. We have to dispose of the wood ourselves now. So my point being is we're not really factoring in the true cost. With the highway department, it's costing us more than it was costing us the contractor to do it solely, plus we have to get rid of the wood. Well, true, 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 true.
Yeah, no, that didn't give it to the highway department last year.
Exactly, I'm just saying we're not really
Hold on,
factoring the actual
Hold on,
cost.
stop.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, it is not on the table to move to doing all of the trees, all lock, stock, and barrel. This was about a particular subset of trees. There's a technical disagreement about whether those 15 trees should have been on that contract or not, and 2 of them were taken care of by National Grid. Nothing said tonight, at no point has anyone proposed that the highway department is gonna quit doing trees, okay? So we just need to not get spun up saying that the highway department's quitting, that the proposal here is for the highway department not to do trees,
I
okay?
beg to
So-
differ, Beth, both you and Brad both said it tonight, that they're not qualified to do it and that they shouldn't do it.
For the,
So
For the
that's
time
what
being.
you
for
said.
the technical
I mean,
trees.
technically,
For the
you
time
both
being.
said that. Am I wrong?
No.
Anybody in this room think I'm wrong? Because you both said it.
No, what I said was that for certain trees, they didn't have the skills for it, okay?
They're not gonna get the skills unless you give them the chance to go do it.
Okay, so they're getting plenty of practice on the trees that weren't deemed to be technical trees. And that's what I said from the get-go, was that nothing that we were discussing was gonna take away Tree Tuesdays, where all they do all day is do trees and to get that experience, okay? So I just wanna make that clear. I have not at any point in this conversation said that they were gonna quit doing trees. Brad's actually have a level of discomfort, but I don't think you're at the point where you want all the trees to get done.
No, I think the bigger issue is not so much the trees in the contract, it's getting the right people at the highway department so we can get back doing what we were doing before.
Exactly.
I mean, to the point, we have a person that's been down there 8 years, he can't quite do it at the capacity he's doing it. He doesn't feel comfortable, so to me, that's a safety issue, where he doesn't feel comfortable anymore.
That if he's uncomfortable doing his job, then he
needs
may,
to retire.
we gotta replace them.
It's about the cost savings in dollars. Rich got in to try to save money to the town. Our taxes are getting way too high in this town, and we gotta save money when we can. And we're spending $70, $80, $60, $15,000 tree, and we can do it for a quarter of the cost, an eighth of the cost, then we need to look at doing that. If these people, it seems like an accountability issue. Nobody wants to be accountable. This gentleman can do what he wants, if it's on the other people's land, oh, okay, I didn't know that, I did whatever. Where's the accountability in that? Where's the accountability? Who's accountable now for does the work down at the barn down there? Who's making sure those people get out and start their job on time and what they're doing? Why aren't we doing that? I'm in town Mondays and Wednesdays now, because I'm partially retired, but I see the town trucks just drive around town with lights on all day.
I mean, Rich is the highway liaison, so maybe you could chime in to that answer. Because I know you're down there almost.
Well, we're looking for some help, as we talked about tonight, but when the highway department is being told that the trees are too technical for them to help by Mr. Tucker, it's not accurate, and that's the only reason I went and did those 2 trees, to prove a point. You can say it was risky of me, you can say whatever, but I often work alone, and I often do trees. And I have the liability insurance to take care of it, equal to the tree contractor. And I'm only asking Dennis that there is not a tree in this town that's too difficult for the highway to do, based on there's only one person with all the responsibility in the tree work. It's the guy in the bucket truck. I'd like to defer to Herb Chafee again. Is the guy in the bucket truck responsible for the whole thing and telling the guy on the ground on how to bring the tree down when they're roping it?
Yes.
It's that simple. There's no tree that's too dangerous.
Who was first, did you say?
Very simple. You're saying that the town will not save money, if we have the highway department working?
I didn't say that, I was just,
Okay.
my point was, Mr. Chafee keeps saying it costs $700 to do the tree this way and $200 to do it this way. It's not reflecting the actual cost.
It is reflecting the actual cost, but the simple fact is if the highway department and the 4 guys from the highway department is working with the contractor on a daily basis, and he's getting paid the same amount for a day, and he takes down 8 trees on that first day, and the other 6 or 7 trees on the second day, that's only 2 days that we're paying that guy at $1,200 a day. But if he does it by himself, it may take him 5 days to take those 15 trees down, and that means that we're paying him $1,200 for 5 days.
That
We're
was,
already
and it
spending
was-
the money on our highway department people. That money has already been expended, it's already in our budget, and those guys are gonna get paid whether they sit and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee all day long, or they're out there working on the trees. So don't stand there and tell me that we're gonna save money by this guy doing it by himself,
That's not what I
because
said.
that is not the case,
And-
sir. You need to go back to your economic class.
okay, so let me answer your question there.
Hold on.
When he
Let's
did
let-
it,
Or you
he was not by himself when he did it. He brought his crew with him when he did it last year. So he was not alone.
How many trees per?
Hold on, let's, hold on, Tim.
All right, I apologize. I didn't know I was unmuted. I have a question, and I want to make a point too as well. So we're talking about using the highway department to save money to cut down these trees. But on the previous agenda item, we just allocated $10,000 to the Board of Health so they could spend money to cut out the brush. That Rich Chafee was the only person that won the bid on that job, which I believe was $18,000 or $23,000. There was only one bid. You were right, Rich. Don't shake your head no. And so if the highway department can cut down these complicated trees that we're all saying about, then why can't they do the brush over at the dump and save us a boatload of money? Because those aren't real trees, that's just brush. You know, and the other point I want to make is that, you know, we all clapped when Rich saved us money, but we're going down a slippery slope. When we have a democratic process and we have 3 people on the board to make a decision, and one person goes rogue and does what they want to do, that's a serious issue.
Serious issue is
And
we saved the town $2,200.
Please don't interrupt me, okay? And I really think that we should take a look at that, because we elected 3 people to be our representatives, not one to do what they want on their own free time. Thank you.
Chris Kelleher, and he requested accommodation.
Didn't hear earlier tonight that Mr. Chafee's also gonna volunteer an excavator to help out on the Euro project. Are we gonna have a problem with that too?
No, but it does need to get vetted through with town council and with the insurance company beforehand.
For me to volunteer my time?
Absolutely.
To do volunteer my time, I need to,
Yes. You need permission, we need to clear it with town council, and we have to clear it with the insurance company.
what would town council, what would their position be to volunteer my time?
I mean, our insurance provider would definitely be the first person we'd go to.
To show that I have adequate insurance to work on the road, but
Right.
I don't need permission to volunteer my time.
You can't just work on town property without getting permission to work on town property.
We give the permission.
Right,
And I do it
exactly,
all the time, but we
exactly.
don't need to go to
We've talked about
Maya.
volunteer work down at, South Pond. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we had talked about before. I'm all for volunteers.
Yeah, but I mean, it's misleading, like, yeah, to show liability insurance, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't need permission from our insurance company to work on.
We need to notify the insurance company that we're gonna have volunteers doing a project.
I think it would be one, the courtesy of notifying Maya, just in case obviously
Right.
something does happen. And I'm 99.9% sure when I talk to our Maya rep, they're gonna say, okay, have them provide a certificate of insurance.
Right.
with the town as, you know, one of the insured.
Exactly.
And obviously, once we have that, we put that on file. If something does happen, Maya's aware of it, we have the proper paperwork, and we can address whatever needs to be addressed.
Quick question. You know, I've asked this question, I don't think you answered Mr. Kelleher's question. Why wasn't the highway department able to clear the brush around the transfer station, around the landfill? Why weren't they able to do it? Because I've asked it several times and he just asked it and we don't get an answer. It's just brush.
Right. No, I don't know why. I never, did you ask him, or you just didn't get an answer?
I've asked this board multiple times. I asked the former town administrator.
Yeah.
I've asked the highway department. I don't get a straight answer.
Highway said
I'm
no.
really, they said they can't do it.
They said
You know,
no.
that's just all they say, no.
Yeah.
So
No, they're not
I am curious to know why
I want to know if they work
this
for
work
themselves,
hasn't
if
been
they
done
work
by
for
them.
the town.
So, I would like to make one thing clear that Mr. Kelleher brought up. How long ago was it that I bid on that project? Was that about
About a year, but a year ago.
18 months, maybe, a year?
Yeah.
Long before I was a selectman?
Yes.
Perfect. And the selectmen
You're
didn't,
not the bid, you're
and the
not-
selectmen didn't award the bid? Is that correct?
You're not involved in the.
No, but my point is, on the previous one that Mr. Kelleher tried to smear me, when I was a citizen in the community and I was not a selectman, I bid on the project for the town. That was never awarded because the selectmen didn't act. Is that correct?
It wasn't awarded because I didn't have the money.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to get the funds, and we also
Okay.
ran out of time for the
I just wanted to,
species.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, since we're clearing things up, man,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Chair, through you.
Yeah.
One of your colleagues, Mr. Chafee, invoked me, so I thought I'd just say, I have no position on your ethical situation, that's not my profession, but as far as the negotiations that took place with the town, they were done according to the board's directive to me, that they would appoint one one select board member to handle negotiations with my company. Along with that, town administrator and town council. So, for my part, there was absolutely nothing untoward that went on. And I hear insinuations to the contrary. As I said, if there's a problem ethically, you'd have to settle that amongst yourselves, but I'm available to answer any of your questions regarding that process. And while we're at it, Mr. Chafee also mentioned me over the summer. I think he said I was afraid to come to your meeting because, oh yes, I can't control my temper apparently. So, I want to assure you, because I'm here tonight, I don't want you to be afraid, what an angry bully you must think I am, Mr. Chafee. I want to assure you that I will never, ever pound on the assessor's door until it breaks, causing him to resign his position because he no longer feels safe in town hall. I will never go into a woman's office and close the door behind me and menace her to the point where she needs to be behind a locked door to come to work until she finally quits because she doesn't feel safe in our town. I promise you that I will never do that, and I hope that Mr. Chafee would join me in promising never to act so reprehensibly again.
But Mr. Frum, is it true that you had a police interaction in the building here when you had a violent assault take place with another person in the town hall? Did the police come to that?
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then secondly,
You're being sued or suing the town, and you're having,
Yeah.
so you're having conversations with,
Hold on.
with Beth after you filed the
No.
lawsuit?
No more.
Is that the case?
Well, you just let him go on a more than a 2-minute rampage.
No, I have the timer right here.
So, they had nothing to do with the agenda item, so if you're gonna let him go
But I
on.
can't limit. I called on
But it
him.
had nothing to do with the agenda, nothing to do with, it had nothing to do with the tree work, and we're letting him go on.
Because I can't stop freedom of speech.
But
That is the problem.
No, Brad, it has to do with the agenda. We gave permission.
So, okay, am I wrong? Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah,
The public
the
comment.
comments, public comment policy that was passed approximately 2 months ago by the board stated you had, well, a speaker had 2 minutes to speak about something that is relevant and pertinent to an agenda item.
So how is that relevant to the
Exactly.
What item
Just
was
a-
that
can we
relevant
not-
to?
Just another smear, that's all it is.
So my question
No.
is I want a clarification.
Sure.
I want a clarification. Mr. Fromm is suing the town, and Miss Coughlin over there had a conversation with Mr. Fromm after he filed his lawsuit and not through our attorneys? Is that what you are indicating, Mr. Chambers?
And my only point was that that same conversation could have happened,
That seems a little unethical, don't you think?
could have happened in an open public forum, that's all I wanted to have happen, to have his document signed.
Behind closed doors, Beth, that is your favorite thing to do. Behind closed doors. You're infamous for it. You are so shady. Shady. And you know what? Everybody sees it. Everybody. How shady you really are. That is unethical. I'm gonna call the ethics board on you.
I'd like to point out that Mr. Chafee's the one that started this.
And
He
Mr.
said
Keller,
in the
you're
meeting
not
that,
Keller, so be quiet.
Is he speaking?
Excuse me?
You
You
have
told me
one
what?
time to talk,
Yeah.
Brad. Mute him.
Well, I think we've had a number of people speak more than once for upwards.
Well, we're getting way off topic, Beth, don't you agree?
Here.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Yep.
So my point of order is that procedurally, you're saying that people are allowed to speak for 2 minutes. You're telling that I need to be muted. Am I being muted is what I want to know, an answer to that. 2, if you're allowing people to speak free range, am I being allowed to speak free range just like everybody else was? Because I waited for everybody else to finish before I tried to say something before Member Shakey told me that I'd be ordered to be muted. So am I being muted? I need to know that because I'm just going to end the call right now. And 2, am I
He's
going to
not
be able to
been
speak like
muted,
anybody
has he?
else?
No, he hasn't.
Not since he raised his hand the first
Yeah.
time.
We can all hear you.
Well, Shakey ordered that I be muted, so I want to know if I'm being muted or not.
You've not been muted.
No.
Okay, then I would like to speak freely like everybody else was, and I'd like to point out an important fact that early in this meeting, this very meeting, that Shakey is the one that brought up the fact saying that Frum is suing the town and that it was a ridiculous lawsuit or it had nothing, it was inappropriate or whatever his words were. I don't know what it was exactly. But let's be clear. He's not suing the town. He's suing the Conservation Commission for them issuing a stop water order in bad faith.
That
So
is the
he's
town.
seeking
That is the
relief
town.
for it. He's not seeking money, seeking relief.
That is the town.
That is the town. And Mr. Cheney did not say that it was a frivolous
Hold on.
lawsuit. What he
You're
said
not,
was it
you
was
haven't,
inappropriate
you're now
for them
responding
to
back,
speak to that.
you're now responding back. He was called on for the point of, yeah.
Are we done with the agenda?
So I think it's,
A shame.
I think we're, oh, we have Jacob.
Oh.
That is related to the tree contract. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, Mr. Tucker brought a properly bid and opened contract to the board. We postponed for 2 weeks. Subsequent to that, I mean, my personal feeling is the contract is materially changed to the point where I don't believe it's executable, very good, by the towns. But that still has to be voted upon by the select board.
I make a motion that we reject all the bids relative to the contract.
I'm gonna abstain.
Second. All in favor? Or any discussion? All in favor?
You're funny. You're funny. You did not have to say that.
Aye?
Aye.
May I speak? Beth, you guys discussed this 15-tree bucket trees, and you said it was only for getting prices, comparing it to other contractors, but you guys were definitely gonna vote on this, the last selectmen's meeting you had, and you said you were not gonna, but you guys were absolutely gonna vote on that until Mr. Chafee said he wanted to look into a few things. And now tonight, you're trying to say it was only for cost purposes.
No, Mr. Chafee said that the discussion was that it was for cost purposes and that, that we
I
were
get it,
gonna
right.
execute the contracts, right, to do the comparison of costs.
You were gonna
Okay.
vote the last time on that vote that in.
Absolutely.
Right.
That was,
Now,
that
tonight
was
it
what,
changed-
that was
tonight
what
it
was on the
changed.
agenda. That was what was on the agenda,
Right.
was to vote the contract.
But tonight it's different, oh, just for price purposes.
No.
That's what you said. Go ahead and take back.
I think what I opened with Mr. Holcraft, and I think I repeated myself a couple of times, is that at no point was the intent to get away from our primary means of cutting trees being the daily bucket truck contract that we signed months ago.
Yeah, that was separate from the conversation.
Right. What Mr. Chafee is saying is, according to the minutes, and there was some additional conversation around it, that one of the primary purpose for the 15-tree contract was to compare the all-in cost, and there was discussion around all-in costs relative to the contract. Mr. Tucker made the decision, based on his professional judgment, to put the 15 trees that he viewed as well, not all of them are technical, because I had the conversation and did a round of going and looking at the trees. What he put on the 15-tree contract, which by the time that went out was somewhat inconsistent to what Mr. Chafee said, with what our original discussion was, to do apples-to-apples comparison, because Mr. Tucker had made the decision that it would be better if we were gonna put a contract out for all-in on certain trees, to take the most technically difficult trees out of the pool, rather than doing run-of-the-mill trees to do a price comparison on. So, in essence, what was put out to bid may have been inconsistent with what the original intent of the 15-tree contract was, okay? I don't know that it was necessarily
That's my
a bad
point. You're
decision.
changing it around now.
No, what I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm changing it around, I'm saying I'm not,
Okay.
the decision that the tree warden made was not consistent with what we had talked about during the meeting. What he did was pursuant to what his opinion was relative to the technical difficulty of the trees, that the trees that would be most in the interest of the town to have be handled all in by a tree company. Is
Yeah,
what
you
he
guys
put
are-
out on the
You
contract.
guys were gonna vote it in last week.
And it's now voted and done, sir. Did you want to move on to your next agenda item?
Yeah. Call it up. Jacob, want to shoot it out in 10 minutes, preferably?
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
You know, Dell has a good drop history, though. Is that a Dell?
That's an
It's,
apple.
Apple.
That's an Apple. Ooh, that could get frightening.
So I'll try to be as quick as I can. So this is a cable access discussion, so I'm here as the cable coordinator. Dr. Hosterman for the elementary school came to me about a month ago looking for a solution because their music program is currently taking off and they have more students than they have space for.
So they're looking to get the studio back.
They're looking to get the studio back, in a nutshell, yep. So we discussed different options with her and then with Ron, and I do not believe we actually need this space at all. We only need one small section to have the server rack in.
Okay.
If we're okay with it, it is what I would propose we do. But she wanted to seek your permission first before evicting us, so to speak.
So where will you store? Would you have a proposal? Will you?
So my suggestion would be that we, most of the equipment that is in there could be surplused, that is currently there. It's not used, and once we have the studio here, we won't have a need for any of that equipment either. So that space probably would be better served to students.
Okay.
Should we, so there's an option two, should we decide that we do need some space, she's willing to give us the existing music room and they would swap. So they would move their music kids to the cable studio and then we would move into the music room. It's a smaller space, but it would still meet our needs. If we decided we had to take all that surplus equipment and keep it somewhere.
Do
And
we
then,
have any room here that would be adequate to bring
Or
it?
in the library annex.
I'm sorry, what was that? I
The
didn't-
library annex?
Is that like the top floor?
No, no.
It's over on
The
Common
building
Street.
next to the library.
Oh, okay. I've never seen the space, but that could be an option.
Yeah.
If you talk
Yeah,
to
just
Brenda,
Brenda,
maybe
talk
in
to
the
Brenda.
upstairs there,
Yeah, because they don't use the upstairs rooms pretty much, I don't
yeah.
Okay, yep, no, I can absolutely talk to them.
Otherwise, we have a lovely third floor.
Well, that's what I thought you were talking, that's what I thought you were talking about, and I would appreciate not being stored up there.
If you don't mind one floor of stairs, the library annex might be a good option.
Right, we do, so there is a server rack, that server rack would have to stay at the school. And there is also an air conditioning, heat pump air conditioning unit that was installed by the cable studio. So those are other things that,
So does it need to get transferred to the other room?
well, if we move to the other room, yeah, it would have to be moved to the other room. The equipment now doesn't get as hot, and I've measured temperatures, and I'm comfortable keeping it at ambient temperatures, so we actually don't even need to run it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, it just belongs to us, but if we left it there, I wouldn't, yeah, it's not my equipment, I'm not,
It's probably depreciated enough
Yeah.
that we wouldn't wind up with an issue where it was paid for by the cable, but it's remained installed.
yeah, I doubt that, yeah. So that's kind of the situation as it stands. There's the third option, I suppose, is we could attempt to move cable equipment here, but, and put it in the basement with the other server rack, but I'm not a fan of that, so I'm more a fan of my option number one, which would be surplusing stuff that is genuinely unusable. We have things like film, lots and lots of film that, we don't have cameras that use or take anymore. A tremendous amount of vinyl records, so.
So the server that's gonna stay at the school,
Mhm.
Is that what we're gonna continue to use?
Right, so we'll keep that, and it's
So
in
will that-
one rack.
Will that air conditioning unit need to be moved with that?
I don't believe, yeah, no, I don't think it's necessary based
And
on the
then
temperatures I'm seeing.
Everything that you move to the annex, if that's an option, do you need AC over there being on the second floor? It's an older home, or is it just surplus?
Yeah, it really is just surplus equipment, most of which is, I would say, a lot of it is broken.
Oh, so you're just talking about moving surplus equipment over there?
Doing something with it, and we
Yeah.
can either,
If it's broke,
that's what I'm
do
saying.
we wanna discard it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, either that or lot it up and throw it on municipal bid and see if we can get rid of it first, get somebody else to move it and not have the disposal cost.
Right, so Dr. Hosterman did provide disposal as part of her offer to us, so she would cover all of that. She'd even give us time with her staff to move things. All I would have to do is inventory, which I've been doing.
Yeah, so for the next meeting, you want to bring whatever you have inventoried so far, so we can declare a surplus.
Mhm.
And then, the usable stuff, and I think you may also have some older computers over there that may have some collector value.
Mhm.
Let's municipal bid those.
Okay. All right, sure. So the second thing is, so the studio project, which is designed, so just to kind of give you an update on where we're at with that. Our plan is to put cameras on this floor, cameras on the second floor, create a broadcast studio and a two-way communication between the floors. We should save the town significant money in lieu of an elevator and things like that. It'll also allow us to broadcast a lot better than all of this equipment that I have to run up and string up. So I do have, and I have copies for all of you, this is the contract that was provided in the RFP packet. It's filled out. The question is, though, that it appears that the contract is a template for, like, building a structure, like somebody building a house or an office. So I've read through it. The terms seem reasonable, although perhaps not fully applicable to this job, which is basically putting cameras up and connecting equipment. It's very IT oriented, and this is talking about things like, framing and things of that nature. So that was my other, because I think they read the word studio and thought it was a
I
build.
think that was originally from Kelly as part of the RFP process for the whole studio project.
Right. So, and I can give you guys these copies so you can take a look at what I'm talking about.
So do we just start over? Would that be a better,
It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I'm not opposed to,
I mean, if this doesn't really apply, what's on here doesn't really apply, would it be a better fit to start over and come up with a real number?
What I will say is I'm not opposed to the dollar amount. I'm confident that I can provide what I'm going to provide for the dollar amount. I believe the scope of work matches exactly, well, no, I actually even think the scope of work matches, but I mean, there's a lot of things, you know, I don't have an exact list of the things that I found, you know, they want us to have a,
As-built drawing.
right, right, exactly, as-built drawings, they want a project superintendent, which would just be me. So, I mean, there's some, I mean, I don't know that that would necessarily impede us moving forward, and I have started procuring the equipment.
Who drafted the contract?
It was provided in the packet from KP, so I believe they are,
Yeah, because they did.
I'm assuming Ellie and KP worked on it.
and the PDF said KP on it, the contract says KP on it, so. And again, I feel the scope of work is good. I've added in some additional things that I felt were necessary at no extra cost. My goal has been and continues to be to try to keep the cost as low for the town as I can, so.
So when would you be complete with this?
So the date was April 30th, but I believe I can do it sooner. But that gives me room for testing, and there are a lot of components that have to interconnect, and we have to do some modeling of the space for acoustics. We also decided we would make the space more flexible. So after talking with Ron, we want to be able to maybe have theatrical productions, as an example, upstairs. We discussed, like, so the whole point is for people who need accessibility to be able to come in on this floor but go up there. Well, then we talked about, well, what if one of the select board in the future needs accessibility accommodations? Well, now we have to reverse things, and so we needed the flexibility. I've built that all in, and again, I can guarantee the price that we agreed upon, that we bid for, so. But we did, that was what delayed things a bit, was I wanted to make sure it was a very flexible system.
Did anyone else bid?
Yes, there was another company that bid as well.
When did this,
When did it go out to bid?
Yeah.
April,
okay.
possibly May, actually, but those 2 months, one of those two.
I don't know much about it, so.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean,
I'm
I
assuming
know,
you guys,
no, not a lot. I'd have to look back into it.
Okay,
where are these funds coming from?
that's a grant.
It's a grant?
Correct.
So we've already secured it?
Yep.
Okay.
And I was the lowest
Should
responsive
we-
bidder. So.
Do we need to sign this, or can we have Ron work on this with Jacob? What
Yeah,
involvement do
give
we
him the
need?
permission to carry out the contract.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
could
I'm thinking.
authorize me
Yeah.
to sign it
Yeah.
at my discretion upon working
I'll
with
make a
Jacob.
motion that Ron take over for the selectmen and work with Jacob to execute the contract.
Appropriate contract. Second.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Pretty easy, aye. Thank you,
Thanks.
Jacob.
Thank you. We didn't do it, and when we went through this, because we went through things fast here, but I think maybe we'll put it to the next agenda. Pete had, you know, notable mentions, and I think,
Anniversaries and such.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think maybe we'll do that
Sure.
next time.
Can I just look at the brief?
That it? We need a motion to adjourn? We cover everything? So I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.